Good morning and welcome everybody. We are here on March 18th, 2025 for our Executive Policy Committee, and I want to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu and Dakota peoples, the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 in Treaty 3 territory, and I'm joined today by my council colleagues, Councillor Santos. Luke's is on her way, Duncan and Edie, and because of work, Councillor Borwati is remote today. Also joined by our interim CAO, Mr. Sherwood Armbruster, our clerks, team, and members of the public service as well, who will be helping us along here, kind of report to report. And so we'll begin today with a motion to receive the previous minutes from Councillor Duncan. Thank you. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, do we have another motion from Councillor Edie?
Yes. Oh, sorry, Councillor Edie, go
Councillor Edie, go ahead.
I'd like to move the minutes of the meeting of February 18th, 2025.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
I have one more motion, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Edie.
We have addendum reports, so I'd like to move to suspend the rules to hear the addendum reports today.
Okay, motion from Councillor Edie. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Could I make a motion to allow another speaker also?
Sure. Do we have a name?
Louise May.
Louise May. Okay. Motion to hear Louise May. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right.
And then if I could just get a motion to allow Councillor Borwati to participate remotely today?
Okay, Councillor Santos moves that. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, on to our delegations then.
Okay, first up, our first delegation is Councillor Gilroy to be heard with respect to report number 2 of the Governance Committee of Council.
Good morning.
Thank you, and just my first time with Councillor Edie at EPC, so congratulations, Councillor Edie. And hopefully you allow me just a little bit more time if I go over. So I want to talk about the governance review process and what we call strong mayor model. And it's a top-down approach because it imposes solutions without understanding the realities on the ground and in councillors' wards. It assumes that mayor, his team, his staff, and administration have all the answers, when in reality, the people living and working in the community are the real experts on the needs, and councillors work with them daily. Politics and decisions made from above often overlook local nuances, cultural dynamics, and the day-to-day struggles of people affected. This leads to solutions that are out of touch, ineffective, and sometimes even harmful. True progress happens when power is shared. Now, the top-down approach not only impacts the strong mayor model top-down approach not only impacts council, but it actually impacts our administration. And that's, I think, almost where some of us feel it the most, because it filters on to the other side, which is administration. It creates an atmosphere of fear, frustration, and apathy. A top-down administration takes the lead from our strong mayor model. It fails because it centralizes decision-making in a way that disconnects those that are not on EPC. This ignores practical challenge, local knowledge, and unique community needs. A prime example of this is my motion on proactive needles. And the person that put the motion forward only gets 2 parks, and I had to fight for 1 park. So it was a real concern that, you know, and then in Councillor Edie's and Councillor Santos, who I know they share this concerns, of the 12 parks, I got 2 parks out of my motion that I put forward and a concern that I brought to all of council. So this top-down approach leads to a lack of local insight. Its rigid bureaucracy stifles innovation, and it lowers morale and resistance from workers. It slows down responses to problems because their adjustments, they must go through layers of people in order to get the work done. They have to go through different aboves in order to respond. So we need to have a creative environment that has that values participatory and input solutions that are effective, sustainable, and widely accepted. So I want to encourage you today, you're looking at this review, and I want to encourage you today to make changes. Of course, I'm somebody who is not in favor of the strong mayor model. I don't think we're going to get rid of it in its entirety. And, you know, this is not about the mayor of the day. This is really focusing on whoever is mayor, whether she, they, or he are at the realm. We want to make sure that we have something that is fair and equitable for not only councillors, but for Winnipeg as a whole, to make sure their wards are fairly represented. So the first thing I wanted to look at is under number 1. I just wanted you to get some maybe clarity from the administration on when they look at that they're going to consult in all different wards. Does that include on budget cuts? So are we going to really understand? Because sometimes there's impacts to budget cuts that we don't really realize until it's like in mid-year, right? Something, you know, it was a trickle-down effect because, and this is where that top-down approach doesn't work, because your administration might not be able to tell whoever that this could have trickle-down effects and there could be a cut. So I kind of want to understand that a cut is going to be happening, and sometimes we don't find out about that till it's kind of happened. And so that would be nice to have that clarity, but I don't know if it's really doable, but I'm going to ask that anyways. Now, under 2A, what I am confused about is that the mayor appoints his five members of his APC. Does that mean that the mayor is not going to be able to have any others that he appoints, like the Human Rights Committee, like the chair of the police board? If the mayor doesn't want to sit as chair of the police board, I'm hoping that we as councillors are given that authority, because every time you add the authority onto another person that gets another pocket of money, and you know, it gives them gives he, she, or they more of the power, and it really has that trickle down effect. So that's what I'm trying to discourage here. So we could still have a standing policy committee that the mayor chooses its chairs, however, does not have any authority of any others. That means acting deputy mayor and acting deputy mayor as well. Now that would be chosen from council. So it's unclear what this means. Is it just the 5 members that the mayor is appointing and no others? That's what I'm hoping that this is saying, but it is unclear. And also too, one of the other things that I'd like to talk about is the when you get when you become standing policy chair, you get a bump in pay, which I think is respectful because they're doing a little bit more work. But with that also comes is an actual money to be able to go to different conferences and stuff. And what I would like to see is that more shared, that conference pocket. As councillors, we don't have the ability. We have to go and ask, you know, and it's an awkward situation. So it'd be nice to be able to share and have access to that, even if it's shared half the pot, so that, you know, the chair can go to some kind of convention, but also to another council would have an opportunity to learn about something on those committees as well. That pocket of money sometimes gets just, the chair has all that money, and it's not educating us on what we're doing within our different standing policy committees. So I was kind of hoping that there could maybe be some discussion with you about if you're willing to do that. So another thing is that I really wanted in here that I was hoping to get changed, and when I did sit on this committee, I tried to change it. I thought it would be part of these changes. And this is not really referring to, this is referring to council's decision. So what I would like to see is more diversity on our different standing policy committees, if the willingness is there. And so what happens right now is that we'll have sometimes councillors that have been sitting on a certain standing policy for many, many years, and then it's harder for somebody to want to get on. it's not fair that we sometimes have, like, we do these votes and stuff like that, but sometimes I really feel it's really important that we all understand the file. So what I'm kind of suggesting is maybe that after 2 years, if there's somebody wanting me, if there's nobody wanting on that committee, that's a different story. But if there is a counselor that's interested, there shouldn't have to be a vote. We should be encouraging counselors to be able to rotate through our standing policies so that when they are making decisions, they are very familiar with the things that we're talking about because they've had an opportunity to sit on those committees. I think that that makes a healthier council. So I'm hoping to see that added. I thought that was going to be part of the change that was made because it's something I was really advocating for when I was on the committee. So I guess what I'm asking also too, right now we're dealing with major things going on at the City of Winnipeg. And if we could just lay this matter over to allow for further dialogue with, allow the community to hear kind of what's being proposed. And this is a major decision on how we really govern our city. And I don't think it should be taken lightly. I don't really think the public fully understands how this works. And I really think that it's an opportune time because we're opening this up for discussion, right? And I know that I'd like to see bigger changes that are here, but maybe even between all of us, we can maybe look at some of the changes that I just talked about and how we can make, you know, if we're still going to have that strong mayor model, how we can open it up to maybe have a bit more of an equitable lens. And I really feel that if we do that at the strong mayor level, we're actually going to do that within our public service. Because I've sat on both sides, and when I was first elected, I didn't really, you know, it takes a few years to kind of, you know, understand the flow of things. Well, now I understand the flow of things. Now I got questions, right? And of course, sorry, I have just a few.
Motion for 2 minutes from Councilor Duncan. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Go ahead.
So now it's really hard to sometimes get those questions because there is that fear. I think there's fear on the administration side, and I think that's fair game because, you know, not all councillors play ball nicely, but there's also fear on the councillors' side that, you know, they're not getting the information. So I think that we need to take a lead and show that, you know, we care about these issues and how we can try to make it more equitable for councillors will be a benefit for all of Winnipeg. So that's my ask. Let's give it some time, talk over these discussions. I'm happy to talk over my concerns with you later, but this is the opportune time. I haven't been the champion. Councillor Lukes was far more the champion on this because, of course, I was a little bit more silent when I was on APC, right? But that's how it works, and this is the system that we're in. But we have a time right now to make changes. So let's make it. Let's try to include everybody in those changes and give some thoughtful discussion to what could be one of the bigger decisions at City Hall, because actually this is going to impact everything from how we are making decisions, but how your administration is handling things at City Hall as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One question I have is, did you bring this, like, did you make this presentation to the governance committee?
No, I wasn't able to attend governance. I had another meeting at that
okay.
time. So, but I did bring forward, I mean, I was on the governance, so this is the only year I wasn't on it. So these are the things I was raising during my time on governance, so that they're quite familiar. Councillor Lukes was there at the time, so they're quite familiar on how I feel on these.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Councillors Santos, then Edie, then Lukes. Councillor
Just
Santos?
with respect to item 2A, mayor's appoint authority be limited to appointment of up to 5 members. You had mentioned that you sat on EPC as well as non-EPC, and you understand that sometimes the mayor would shift some files over to some other portfolios. Don't you find with just limiting it to 5, finding it very restrictive? Like, we know that their city has grown. You know, we have 15 councillors. If you only had 5 on EPC, like, don't you feel the file gets to be kind of astronomical, where we're seeing our city growing? There's billion-dollar infrastructures that we're dealing with. If we only limit it to 5, it really restricts kind of everybody's mandate. Don't you feel that there could be a little bit more of a ebb and flow of not being so restricted to 5 and just keeping it at 7 or even half of council, having more of that, mandate on other large files? Because we're seeing like a lot of consolidation, also expanding of other portfolios.
So I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but I'm going to try to respond. I actually think you're going to be more inclusive if you bring other counselors on, right, that are non-EPC members that can help do some of the work. And we can be doing that at deciding some of those things, like subcommittees at the council level. It doesn't need to be done at the mayor's level. And I think that is a concern, right? We as councillors should have a little bit more authority and oversight on some of those things. And when we don't, it does have a centralized control. Then there's a certain amount of people that have the information,
Yeah.
and then there's those that don't. So actually thinking bringing non-EPC councillors into the fold a little bit more will help, not hinder.
Okay, so what I'm talking about chairpersons, like 5 members to act as chairpersons. So if we expanded that to 7 or 8 and then not, have actually spreading the workload evenly amongst 8, I'm just spitballing numbers here, spreading the portfolios amongst 8 different councillors, that would allow the mayor to bring in other councillors to chair different committees.
So Councillor Santos, why can't we do that at the council level? I don't understand. It is no different. So I don't understand. You can have an acting mayor, an acting deputy mayor, a deputy mayor that still has roles and responsibilities, but they're provided to by council and not directed so when the mayor has all that power, what happens is that those are and it's just the system we're in, right? They can get the votes and things through council. It makes a layer of power. And so what I'd like to do is try to dilute that a bit. I'm not going to take away it entirely. I know that I can't get the votes for that, but by making sure that the mayor, he has the 5 votes. That's good. But now there has to be a little bit more collaboration with council. If you look at other cities that, like I take Edmonton as a prime example, they've done really great work without a strong mayor model, right? So I just believe that more collaboration is always a more positive thing and not a negative thing.
Okay, Councillor, I think we're at Councillor Edie, and then Luke's, then Duncan.
I think Luke's was before me.
Okay,
Oh, me? Okay. So Councillor Gilroy, I can't remember what committees you were chairing, but standing committees. In terms of sharing of the, $5,000 as a fund for a standing committee? 4,000, right. Did anybody ever ask you or about being able to utilize some dollars to go to, say, a conference related directly to your portfolio?
No.
No, eh? Okay.
No, no one ever asked. And a lot of the times, I don't think I went anywhere when I was chair. But I did use it for extra help that I needed for staffing and stuff like that. So it's not that I do think that they need it. What I'm trying to find is in a more equitable way, and
Sure.
Councillor Lukes would probably understand this more, maybe there's another way we can do it. But FCM, we can only go to FCM conferences. So say I have an interest in, like I'm on community services right now, say I have an interest in going to something that Councillor Santos is going to. We could both be going and getting ideas and stuff like that, but I can't because I can only go to the FCN conference. It's the only one they'll pay for, and I just don't have enough of my own money to do that, right? So there might be other ways we can kind of do that, but it is a problem when there's inequities in what we can learn and educate in terms of the city.
I'll ask the clerks a question, but what I'm driving at is, this is, you've seen me in action the first time. I'm trying to work with all the members of my committee because
Yeah.
I see the role of a chairperson is not just, carrying out the mayor. It's working with my colleagues to provide, make things better for Winnipeggers, right? So there's nothing in place that stops you, Councillor Gilroy, asking Councillor Santos, to pay your conference fee or whatever it is. $4,000 isn't a lot to travel though, right? So,
No, it's not, and that's the thing. So say Councillor Santos wants to go to a conference, and like, she's gonna have to say no now to me, right? So that's not fair for her either. So just having a way we can,
anyway, I
maybe
see
there's
this
other
in
ways.
committees
I'm
when-
putting it out there, and maybe there's other things you can think about. Maybe we don't have a stridgage line on going to only FCM conferences. Maybe we open that up.
Well-
But it's just a discussion that I would like to approach.
Yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
I don't see anything blocking me right now. I'll ask the clerks if there is from a member of my committee using that money.
FCM money, yeah, I
Well, you
have.
got, no, not FCM, I'm not talking about FCM money, I'm talking about that 4,000, right? If it pertains to the standing committee policy areas, then, anyway, I don't see a need to put something in place. I think a good chairperson is working with their colleagues, and if you need some money to attend something, it would be good to hear when you come back what you found out. You know what I mean? So, anyway,
Yeah.
I don't see a need to, unless there's some rule that says it can't do that.
Well, I guess that would be just something I just disagree with you on, Councillor Edie. I would just say, making it more equitable so I don't have to go to a chair and ask, I think is a nicer way to deal with something, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. The one other question I had was in regards to, so there's different kinds of appointments the mayor makes. Some committees, we decide as council members. Others, they decide, but like when Mayor Gillingham took office, he asked a number of us to take on certain portfolios to assist him in achieving some of his campaign commitments to Winnipeggers. So are you opposed to that kind of an appointment as well, or?
I'm not
Being done by
really
the mayor?
necessarily kind of following, you mean your letters that you get, that when you, the mayor's letters that he provides you when you're?
Well, I remember one year, it was the Mayor's Seniors Committee under Mayor Cates, and that was one of his things, but it was a mayor's committee that did supply
I think that,
advice to EPC and the mayor.
I think you should look at the appointments. You definitely should, if there's chair money involved, if there's, I think that, it becomes more of a concern. But just, and this is prior to Mayor Gillingham, it was the previous mayor, the Human Rights Committee that you know very well was the Access Advisory Committee. And now that took on two different committees. It took a big budget. And now that the mayor chooses the Human Rights Committee chair,
The chair.
which that was never done prior. And that was the previous mayor.
Well, I was,
Now,
yeah, that's right.
that comes with a chair budget and all that. Like, that's just, those kind of things add to the mayor having a little bit more control.
Okay.
So when we talk about EPC +2, that just adds on to it, right? So what I'm trying to do is kind of have more of a balanced approach to what I'd like to see, I guess, is more balanced approach.
I would just.
And then I'll go to Councillor Luke.
Yeah, the last,
Question.
well, I'll just point out, like, you make a good point. I was the chairperson as elected by council for whatever, 12, 13 years, whatever, 12 years. But I was invited to sit on the Access Advisory Subcommittee, just not as a chair. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Lukes, then Councillor Duncan.
Sure. Well, I started this in 2019, so I'm really not open to delaying it. Like, honestly, I am not open to delaying it. I'm going to have a lot more to say, I guess, at council on this. you know, you had your experience of being part of budget working groups and on EPC. My experience for 6 years was a mayor that didn't speak to people because he had the votes, right? He had the votes. He saw no need to speak to people. And I think that, A, just shows really weak leadership, and B, was ridiculous. So I'll speak at council when I calm down a bit more, and I'll be very nice and polite. But we're not all going to agree on models, for sure. I spent too much time and energy on this in the big picture. It's really important. It's very important. But when I look around the council chamber and I see some of the antics that go on and some of the scenarios that unfold, we do have to make changes. And I'll say more at council on this.
Councillor Duncan?
Do I get to respond, though? Like,
I don't know if there's a question in
That
that.
wasn't really a question. Oh, yeah, I guess.
You have to ask
Did
the
you
question.
know I'm not voting to delay it?
Councillor Gilroy, you get to respond.
thank you. So on that, we are making some big decisions, and we're having community consultations on this one. We're not having community consultations. And what I have to say to you, Councillor Lukes, is what I want is that same Councillor Lukes, and I want you to pretend that this is the same mayor, if that's what gives you that, because we don't know who could be mayor, right? And how you're feeling is how I'm feeling. And we have, I get along great with Mayor Gillingham, but I still feel as anger as you feel being on the other side. So it's a system change. It's not necessarily a mayor, it's a system change that needs to happen. And we're creating the imbalance. So I want you to have that anger, and I want you to put it into this, because I don't think this is what it would look like if this was the previous mayor that you so spoke of. So that's what I'm asking. And I think we should be doing community consultation on,
We did community consultation on this. We did a lot. Well, we did. And then we did it at each committee, we did it. Each committee could put input. We did public consultation on it. We had Marion Sorelli come down, and Councillor Brady had a little interaction there. So we can't say we didn't do community consultation. If people were worked up about it, they'd be here today too, talking about it. Now, I don't see, well, maybe there's one or two on the agenda, delegates, but.
okay, so we can agree to disagree, that's
Okay.
fine, yeah.
Councillor Duncan?
Thank you very much. So you speak of the strong mayor model. It sounds like you are in opposition of that, question mark?
Well, there are some things that I'd like to see changed about that, and I think that we have a lot more, we can't change that, it's up to the province, so I don't think it's going to be changed. So what I'm looking at is some solutions that we can do internally on with what we got. So I think by this document, I think we can control the amount that the mayor brings into that kind of inner circle and create a more collaborative kind of approach to how we do politics
Okay.
here.
So then number 2 in the committee recommendation around the mayor's appointment authority be limited to the appointment of up to 5 members of council as chairpersons. You would want to see that expanded, and you would not be supportive of that current wording?
Well, I want some clarity. I'm not sure, so I want you to ask some clarity. I don't want to expand, so I don't think that the mayor should have a say on deputy mayor, acting deputy mayor, just his standing policy committee. I don't think he should have a say on, if he does not choose to be chair, on on the police board. So yeah, if that's what you mean by expanding it, then yes.
Okay, so I guess we'll have to agree to disagree. I don't know why the mayor would want to have council appoint his deputy mayor and acting deputy mayor to go out into the community to speak on his behalf if it's not someone that he's appointed.
Other councils do it, Councillor Duncan. This
Okay,
isn't,
fair
this
enough.
isn't, you know.
So back to my point then.
Yeah.
You do or you don't want more than 5? And I ask this because, I mean, as our city grows and we take on more and more population, which requires more and more services, I can think of discussions that have happened around this table around bylaw enforcement, parks and recreation, Transit is over a $200 million budget. I mean, I might be alone on this, but I would like to see more standing policy committees so that we can really focus in on the work being done and have some more accountability within these areas to make sure that our public services working as council directs for the people of Winnipeg. So, I mean, to your point, you would like less of a strong mayor model. Why would we not increase the number of SPCs, which then would increase the number of chairpersons?
If the mayor is not appointing the SPC,
Yeah.
then I would be okay with us increasing a standing policy committee. If the mayor is appointing those with chair budgets and all that, then I see it as increasing the strong mayor model, so which I would not support.
Well, yeah, okay, that argument could be made, but would you not also think that it would also support the thought of accountability for all councillors equally? Those that sit on committee as chair and those that do not?
Can you repeat that question? I
Yeah,
didn't understand.
accountability for all councillors being equal. Right now, there are 5 councillors
Right.
that are chairs, that are extremely accountable as chairs, and then there are the 10 others who sit on committees but do not have the same level of accountability. So
Correct.
let's forget the whole mayor piece of it, and let's talk about accountability for councillors being equal around the table. Are you not supportive of that?
Of course, that's why I think we should be not having a mayor that appoints people that we actually appointed at the council level, which would make everyone more equal, which would make it more equitable, so we can have these discussions. You can't do it if the mayor is appointing it. It really leaves people out. There's an imbalance. Now, not saying if that's the system we're going to have, then let's have it, but then let's control it. Let's not have that much control, and let's let if we want to have, maybe we devise a plan that we have the mayor appoint some standing policy committees, and if we want to increase the standing policy committees, then we have half are appointed by non-APC members. Like maybe we have a different system. We might have to create that.
I just think that as we increase potentially, and this is all, not on the table at this point in time, but I don't know that I can support the mayor's appointment being limited to 5. I think that as our city grows, we need to make sure that the attention needed is given to these areas that are growing and need special attention to.
So even comments here that you and some of the other councillors have made, that there seems to be an idea of growing APC, and I have not been part of those discussions. So maybe there's some
Well, I'm
kind of...
asking you to be a part of the discussion.
Well,
What do you think?
But it's sounding like you're having those discussions without us, right?
I'm having
like
it with you right now,
non-EPC.
Councillor.
We're having it on the floor of EPC.
I know,
I don't
but
think that that's where we should have discussions
So-
on something that could really change the course of council.
I know, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, then I'm gonna
Yeah.
kind of land the plane.
Yeah,
in a
I guess,
minute, so.
my thing is that you say you don't want a strong mayor model, but then
Mm-hmm.
to add additional potential areas of SBC, which are not happening, I'm just saying I'm not comfortable with 5, seems to be speaking out of both sides here. You don't want more council involvement.
If we only have for 5 right now, that's what I want. If we're expanding it, then we have to review it, right?
well.
And determine as a council.
And I just wanted to
what
say
we
I
wanna
would
see.
support your limit of term on SPC members. I don't know that 2 would be, maybe 4 to match the term of the council, but I would support that. I think that your points around having more voices around the table and allowing councillors to learn each area would be good. So are you putting forward an amendment to this, is my question?
No, what I wanted is you guys to take it back and look at it and take some time to look at it.
And then just my
That's what I
final point,
wanted.
Mr. Mayor, I would not be supportive of a layover. I think that further compounds the public perception of city council not getting anything done. It's been since 2019. Thank you.
Okay, interesting,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, Councillor Eady, and then I'll make.
Follow-up, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. First question, though, I was a little concerned about discussions. I've talked to the speaker about this as well. Do you have a problem with that?
Sorry, what was your question?
Well, I've spoken to the speaker about this report and had discussions with her. But wouldn't you agree, though, that, like, we're not going to be debating each other's positions here? We don't want to delay it because it's time for 16 members of council to consider it and vote on it, and whether or not to proceed. And I think that the mayor will speak to this, but, you know, we all have, governance is the bigger thing, right? So, one question I do have, though, so if the mayor's not appointing chairpersons and that sort of thing, does the mayor get a vote along with the 16 of us? Like, we always have sort of an informal meeting to discuss assignments and stuff because there's so many. What's your feeling on that? Does the mayor vote?
I'm sorry, you're going to have to ask the question again? Sorry, I can't.
Does
I'm
the mayor help vote to make a decision in terms of who's on what and where? Like, right
Oh.
now, the mayor doesn't have a vote.
Yeah, I think that I think that the mayor should have a vote. If we were to open it up, he should have actually a vote and a say. Right now, he kind of doesn't, even though we do know that sometimes there's a push to have certain members on and off, right? But
That debate is suspicious, anyway.
yeah, no, fair enough. But Councillor Edie, it's not, and I want to really say this, it's not the mayor, it's the system that we've created, a tug and a pull, right? So even just amongst us, we're deciding, the mayor might not say anything about who they want on a certain committee, but just amongst us, now we're the chair. Now we want to make sure that committee's flowing good. Like, so we talk about it internally. It's the system that we set up. It has nothing to do with the mayor. It's a system we set up. So I don't want this to look at an attack against the mayor, because this is not. I don't think he's interfering in who's going to be sitting in these committees, but I do think that the system has set us up that we start to do it.
I'll just,
I'm just wanting to know, I'm not for taking longer. It's been way too long already. It's been years, so
Are you expecting any changes, though, prior to going to council?
somebody will move motions, I don't know.
okay, Councilor Lukes, you get the last, then I'm going to wrap this up because we've been at this a while. Councilor Lukes?
Yeah, right, you brought a lot of good suggestions. Why don't you write them all down? Like, write them down, because there's new ones, like you were on the committee, I think, with me for 2 years, I think it was. And
Yeah.
there's brand new ones I'm hearing today.
Okay.
So write them down.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
I have a couple quick questions. I just want to say, first of all, she's not here, but I want to thank Speaker Sharma for all of her work with the various governance committee members over the years, because this is significant. So I do want to express my appreciation to Councillor Sharma, our speaker, on this. And just, are you aware that Winnipeg has a form of, but it's not a true strong mayor model? In some cities, for example, it's the mayor who sets and develops the budget. In some cities, a mayor has veto power. So if the mayor here had veto power, 15 councillors can vote one way, and the mayor could say, no, it's going to go a different direction, and completely overturn a decision of council. So the model that is here at the City of Winnipeg is not a true strong mayor model. Here, the mayor gets one vote equal to everyone else's vote around council. So I didn't know if you were aware of that or not, just as a...
Yep. Yes, I am aware of it. There's different models.
Yeah.
I'm just here to try to make the system here is better than it is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then are you aware as well, as far as accessing funds to get to conferences, my understanding is most councillors, and when I was a councillor for 8 years, similar, I never did spend all of my ward allowance, and now the ward allowances have gone from around 90,000 to close to 150, whatever it is, I think, thousand. So, and most councillors still, to my knowledge, don't spend all of their funds every year. So I'm just wondering if you're aware that those monies, I know you know this, they can be used for conferences as well.
Yeah. My ward has a higher needs ward Mayor Gillingham, so I tend to use a lot of my budget for different presentations and stuff, so I don't really have that big of a budget. I did ask to see if I could use the FCM budget before, but was told no. So there might be other things you could do, asking, I don't know if it's part of this or if it's a council motion, that maybe we could look at to make it a little bit more equitable to go to conferences that aren't part of this. I don't know where it sits. I don't know if it's a governance review thing or if it's a council decision.
Okay, all right. Okay, so thank you. I appreciate the work that's been done on this report. I'll probably be voting to move it along today, but maybe have another look at a couple of items within this report before council, and maybe see if there's any, in my mind, any amendments that need to be made, but I do appreciate the work that's been done. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Today.
Thank you for hearing me today.
Okay,
Thank you for
all
the
right.
debate. It was good. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. All right.
Okay.
Delegate 2.
Our next delegation is David Grant to be heard on 18 items. David's joining us via Zoom. David, you can go ahead.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for devoting this part of your day to delegations. I also want to offer my heartfelt thanks to Councillor Gilroy for bravely bringing forward her concerns with governance issues. Among the big points she raised was travel. I was once a business traveler like some of you. 40 years ago, that was the only way to follow a meeting and to learn about our industry. In the Zoom era, why are we not using Zoom to learn from faraway meetings? Even if we have to pay a few $100s to participate by Zoom toward the people organizing the thing, it just seems a logical thing. And we're so concerned, everything we do has a checkbox for, is it sustainable? Is it used resources unwisely? Anyway, I want to thank the mayor for his wise words in summary. On topics 1 to 9, I support all of these reports. Staff has come close to doing what it was expected. Those elements of number 9 that were not met are consistent with every other public request and expectation. We wait for pothole repair. We wait for 311, not that long, and we wait for FIPA. Council and city staff have done a great job. On 10, open government. Are you doing what is needed? I don't see any indication of that in these reports. I don't know, because there's no report, how many times do outsiders use the newly opened info? How does this number compare to the number of 311 and FIPA info requests? Are you publishing the right stuff? I suggest that in the next Open Gov report, they could say, and people use this new information 1,200 times in the last month. That would be cool. Anyway, on topic 11, if the rules allow you to feed some of the HAF money to consultants and most of it goes to for-profit developers, what rule actually forbids using some of it for sewage system design? We're going to have to do this. It's only required because of the HAF developments. And 12, irony. In whose world is a plan sustainable if it cannot be paid for? Why not add a 5th pillar? I like the 4 pillars in this explanation. The 5th one would be financial, because you have to have the thing paid for or it won't happen. On topic 14, more irony. Welcoming. In the text if the text on a sign cannot easily be read by most who face the sign, then the sign does not really welcome them. What fraction of those trying to read such new signage have this written language as a mother tongue? On topic audit 1, of all the folks who report to EPC, the auditors are the most essential. The fact that so much important work is not complete tells me that they need far more staff. And I would say that when you're cutting costs, the audit folks with their functional audits of programs and departments, they are critical to you and council running the city. And I think that's something you shouldn't lose sight of. On services 2, this will probably do what you want. I see no list of tree planting teams that have failed utterly in past years. Do other contractors have their past performance assessed in the next request for funding? I understood that was the common thing when I was at Hydro and so on, that if you didn't do well last time, then you were not allowed to bid the next time. And we know that some of the tree planting has been a dismal failure. And I'm just asking that you have a measure of how well they did in their last or over the last 5 years on tree planting. On property 3, there's no indication that any of the land in this report will become a complete community. We hear this phrase a lot. If a community is 85% apartments, will food, hardware, and schools be just a short walk away? On finance 2, I see nothing in this item that assures us that all the high-density building, that it's going to be really a complete community. On governance, governance item 2, you hired a fancy consultant. They wrote a big report. Like all of us, they had access to many hours of City Hall YouTube and draft minutes published. I expected the report to have emphasis on the moments when the intent of Robert's rules and of City Hall policies were violated or appeared to have been violated. I have spoken here before about governance problems, although I have experienced operations that are worse elsewhere. So Winnipeg is doing very, very well in its governance. I'll start with that. I understand that we are forbidden from saying anything controversial at City Hall. I ask you to watch the delegations to the governance committee for evidence that dissent is not really welcome. If the opinion of the people on the committee are different from the delegation, that delegation will not be allowed to speak uninterrupted. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grant. Any questions at all? Okay, seeing none, always impressed with the number of items you can cover in a short amount of time. So I really appreciate you just kind of get right to the direct heart of the matter. So thank you. Have a great day.
And it was nice to have so much of what you're doing that I approved of and support. I had to get that out there. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, our next delegation is Chris Lawrence, President and CEO of the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association, to be heard in support of Report 12 and items 2 and 4 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works.
Good morning. Welcome, Mr. Lawrence.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Executive Policy Committee staff. I have 3 submissions. You have received 2 briefs, and I will be speaking verbally to the GMAC report. I'll start off first with the Sustainable Procurement Action Plan Annual Report. The submission that was provided to the City Clerk's office is on behalf of the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association and the Winnipeg Construction Association. We are original members of the Social Procurement Action Plan Task Force. We have been supporting that particular policy. We understand its importance to the city and to the community. We have made quite a number of recommendations and observations in the process. Those are repeated in the submission. I'm assuming and hoping that you've had an opportunity to review them, so I won't repeat them. However, I want to focus on the last of the observations that we make in the brief, and that is that there is no political oversight on the administration of this particular policy. You adopt annually programs for local and regional streets. You adopt programs for myriad policies and budgets for a myriad of services that the city delivers. And in most cases, if not all, they are subject to some form of political oversight and review. This one happens to be an exception. I can tell you that both the Winnipeg Construction Association and the Manitoba Heavy Construction Association and a number of stakeholders around that table expressed the review repeatedly that while we support the policy, it also requires political oversight and review, and that has not yet been accommodated. And so our strongest recommendation and request of Executive Policy Committee today is that that be changed, that the implementation of adjustments made, monitoring of the success of the social procurement policy be reviewed and have the benefit of oversight of a political committee. So those are my comments on the social procurement policy. With respect to the Goods Movement Advisory Committee report, I want to begin by thanking the Public Works Department, Jim Berezowski, Dave Patton, and a number of other folks within the department that have been really supportive of the work of GMAC, which we think is important for the benefit of Winnipeg and Manitoba's economy. The recommendation is frankly straightforward. What we're asking Council to do is to request the Premier's office, and through the Premier's office, his Council on Jobs and the Economy, to, when they consider making recommendations on matters related to transportation that supports trade, that they be mindful of some really good work that has already been taking place so that we don't make these decisions in silo manner. And at page 8 of the report, you'll see a number of the works that have been identified by GMAC that have contributed to a better, more complete picture of both the transportation needs and opportunities, and those include the Transportation Driving Growth Report from the Winnipeg Metropolitan Region in 2016, the Canada Trade Infrastructure Plan, which was adopted by the Premier's Council of the Federation in July of 2023 and has since been adopted by Premier Canoe and his government. The recognition that trade gateways and corridors are a fundamental asset, not a want. They are an asset to the country in order to be able to move goods and products to and from market. The development that is still underway with the Centerport Canada's transportation strategy, the 24 of April MOU of the Prairie Provinces to look at ensuring that the transportation system in Western Canada acts as a trade gateway in order to enable each of those economies to function more efficiently. You're going to hear later about the Chief Peguis Trail. So there are many, many reports, and it would be a missed opportunity if consideration of the advice given in those reports was not contemplated. So it's an ask for an ask, if you will. And lastly, let me come to the Chief Peguis Trail extension. Just on a personal note, I was a councillor when the first Chief Peguis asset was built, and 33 years later, we still don't have the remaining portion of Chief Peguis Trail. Again, you have my submission. I'm not going to repeat what's in that submission. I'm going to suggest to you the context in which you should consider this particular decision. There have been many decisions made at the federal, provincial, regional, and municipal level that have benefited the country, which when made at the time were undoubtedly difficult political decisions, and arguably, if made on the narrow, what's the immediate financial return on the investment, would have failed. In no particular order, the Canadian Pacific Main Line was a joint federal-private sector investment. There were many sections, probably most sections, of that main line where the ROI to GDP would have been non-existent, but it created Canada. The Shoal Lake Aqueduct, that was in response to water supply needs facing not just the City of Winnipeg, and a decision made not just by the City of Winnipeg, but a joint decision made by Winnipeg, St. Boniface, Transcona, St. Vital, Kildonan, Assiniboia, and Fort Garry. They jointly funded the construction of the Shoal Lake Aqueduct. A great example of what regional thinking and regional planning for economic development and investment in infrastructure can look like. And I doubt that there is anybody today that doubts the merits, the wisdom, the impact, the value that the Shoal Lake Aqueduct has provided. That investment then, in 1919, was $17 million. Imagine trying to do that kind of investment today. CNR, Canadian National Railway, was originally created by an order in council by the federal government in 1918. It was a Crown corporation until 1995. Today, it employs more than 25,000 people, and its estimated enterprise value is $90 billion. Where would this country have been had the federal government not had the foresight to make that investment through an order in council? Air Canada, originally created as through the Trans-Canada Act in 1937 as a subsidiary of CNR, started with a $5 million federal investment, privatized in 1989, provides great on-time, efficient, oh wait, we're still waiting for that to happen, service. The St. Lawrence Seaway. That was a joint Canada-US project completed in 1959. Canada's contribution was $340 million. The contribution from the United States, $140. Today, that would have been a $5.2 billion investment. Imagine where the economy of the adjoining states, Ontario, might be without the St. Lawrence Seaway. Duff's Ditch, 62 to 68 project, $63 million today, well above the $700 million mark. All kinds of public opposition. What are you doing building a ditch? That has saved tens of billions of dollars in flood damage. Other examples, Assiniboine Park, Kildonan Park. Imagine our city without those two gems. Centerport Canada, the hue and cry about $253 million for Centerport Canada Way, which has today generated in excess of $1.5 billion in private sector investment. And the city credit councillor, or Mayor Gillingham, is then councillor to persuade the city and province to invest 60. It's climbed to 73 in 23 to extend sewer and water. That's going to generate in excess of $1 billion. Some bad decisions. Avro Aero, Prime Minister Diefenbaker canceled the most modern investment in aerospace engineering, costing at the time 30,000 jobs and destroying Canada's ability to be a leading aerospace innovator. The Watts Report in 1974, not this council, but City Council of the day, chose to ignore advice in that report that challenged the city to a vision of freeways to accommodate growth.
Okay, Councillor Eadie moves 2-minute extension. All in favor, aye.
As a consequence of that decision, we funneled traffic through Portage and Main. As a consequence of that decision, we closed Portage and Main. As a consequence of that decision, we're reopening Portage and Main. The infrastructure investment deficit, a product of decades of inadequate investment in maintenance and timely investment strategies. In 1998, that deficit hovered around $850 million, and there was advice provided in 2000 to bring that down to zero over a 20-year period. That was ignored. By 2011, that deficit grew to $6.9 billion, and it wasn't until 2013 and 14 that Council introduced the 1+1 to try to deal with it. Internal trade barriers. What are we trying to do as a country today? Get rid of them. Why? Because it costs the country in opportunity, in investment, in inefficiencies. Trade gateways and corridors. In 2009, Canada's reputation globally was 9th best partner with whom to trade. The federal and provincial governments stopped investing in trade gateways and corridors, and by 2019, our reputation dropped to 32nd behind Azerbaijan. So what is the point? Your transportation master plan has an inner ring road system. A key element of it is a missing tooth. One of those missing teeth is Chief Peguis Trail Extension. You cannot just look at Chief Peguis Trail. You have to look at the impact on the entire system. You have to look at what it does to and for and with the economy. You have to appreciate it's a pivotal investment in supporting 54% of the provincial GDP, almost 250,000 jobs, direct and indirect. Can you imagine if we started doing a very narrow ROI to GDP on residential streets? None would be built. So please don't repeat Watts, don't repeat Avro Arrow, make the right decision, support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lawrence. Councillor Eady, question? And then Councillor Lukes.
I appreciate you pointing out all those, I guess you'd call them mega infrastructure projects. Have you ever done an analysis of what the perimeter contributed to the metro area of Winnipeg, or?
No, I haven't, but it's phenomenal. I mean, if you take a look at Centerport Canada Way, it carries 5 million trips a day. I think the original projections were somewhere in the vicinity of 3 million. If you look at what's happened in the RM of Rosser, as a result of those utility and transportation investments, property values have skyrocketed, and that is where the business investment is.
Okay. Councillor Lukes?
Okay, so a couple things. I want to talk about the Sustainable Procurement Action Plan, okay? So I'm just, I'm looking at your submission. So I really appreciate having a meeting with the Manitoba Heavy consultants the other day, and where this was brought up. So I guess my question is, did you know, I'm working with a representative from the mayor's office to do a little deeper dive into the whole social procurement and how it applies to the construction industry. Because the points you've made here are very clear. We know you're very supportive, but the actual functioning of how your operation works in relation to the data and the information that the Sustainable Procurement Plan wants, it doesn't work, right? And another thing that we see too at the city here is a lot of people don't want to self-declare, which is, it impacts the data also. So I guess the question is, did you know? We're going to be working on this. We appreciate the feedback. We really appreciate your summary here. And I'm working with a gentleman in the mayor's office to.
I very much appreciate that observation, Councillor, and I hope that its outcome is the assignment of the policy to a committee, a political committee that has oversight over it.
Right, okay. Okay, and then I guess the other question that I have is, I am too supportive of the Chief Peguis project from a much larger perspective. And, you know, many years, I came down here and advocated for active transportation, and I'm still here doing it, right? And sometimes you're in your world and you don't see the bigger picture, right? Now, you just came back from, I believe it was a national convention on construct with the Canadian Construction Association. I've not heard the update yet. We don't want a long update, but I would imagine that our east-west trade corridors were a huge topic of conversation at that convention. And when we look at how Chief Peguis fits into Centerport and the major east-west trade corridors that enable Centerport to be the economic engine for our province, quite frankly, I think that Chief Peguis is a much bigger picture link in a bigger picture network than maybe most of us see, that I know that I wouldn't have seen years ago.
I completely agree with that. Just to give you a perspective, the Canadian Construction Association, which speaks for the industry vertical and horizontal, is partnering with about 7 national organizations, each of which bring a focus on different aspects of the economy in this country. The view that is almost unanimous right across the board is that we need to, as a country, do 4 things. Number 1, we have to get rid of the internal trade barriers. How silly is it for this country to pursue free trade agreements with other jurisdictions across the pond south of the border, but create barriers to internal trade and economic opportunity in this country? So please, let's, as a country, recognize the fault in that approach and get rid of them. Secondly, let's access the existing free trade agreements that we have and find new ones so that we can diversify our economy, diversify the markets, disentangle from reliance on the markets south of the 49th. Third, let's ensure that we can move our products to and from market east, west, and north to ports of call. Whether it's oil, gas, LNG, natural resources, mineral resources, we can't be hostage to the market south of the 49th. And the last point is that in order to enable the first three to succeed, you need to have a sustainable, predictable, incremental investment strategy in Canada's trade gateways and corridors. And whether you look at Kenaston or Chief Peguis Trail, each are instrumental trade corridors within this city. And we have said to the Premier, we've said to federal members of Parliament that investments in Kenaston, investments in Chief Peguis are exactly the kind of project that requires substantial federal and provincial investment, because those two jurisdictions are the immediate beneficiaries of every dollar instantly that's invested either in the construction of those assets or the economic outcomes thereafter. So whether it's federal or provincial, substantial investment participation is an absolute expectation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your presentation, as always, Mr. Lorentz. Of course, we at the City of Winnipeg are required, and our biggest responsibility is to provide services to the residents of our city. It's impossible to be able to fund the services unless we have a strong economy.
Exactly.
So I can't overemphasize enough, I know you believe in that we have to do all things possible at the City of Winnipeg to create the environment where the economy can thrive, even in difficult times, which we're kind of facing some headwinds right now with all things related to tariffs. It's still incumbent upon us as a council to find ways to create that environment where the economy can hold the line sometimes, and then certainly with every effort to thrive. One of the things that I know we hear talked about is, and I wonder if you have the number. If you don't, Mr. Linton, coming up pretty soon, might have this number, is when it comes to trucking associations and trucking companies, and companies, they want to be able to get basically from their site or wherever they're picking up the product to kind of highway speed within a certain amount of time.
5 to 55.
5 to 55? Can you just explain that a little bit?
5 minutes to reach 55 miles per hour.
Yeah, so that they can
That's
kinda,
an efficiency standard that is universal.
yeah, to get that. So that's why, something like the extension of Chief Peguis Trail, to really do that connectivity. I've got a map open in front of me right now where you see Chief Peguis Trail, the current one, east, and then the missing, as you say, that missing link, which would be a significant filling in of that inner ring road, which will allow products to move, to flow to the economy. Interesting as a side, yesterday I was invited to do a radio program interview for the Times London, UK. And one of the questions the interviewer asked is about interprovincial trade barriers, when all things related to addressing tariffs. So even in the UK, they're noting that Canada has interprovincial trade barriers which limit our economic development and growth as a city, and maybe in part answer to the current challenges we're facing.
I was in Quebec City last week. Quebec produces a maple-infused whiskey, which is outstanding. Can't buy it outside of Quebec because of barriers. Ridiculous. So I have to buy 2 bottles or whatever the number was, put it in my suitcase, and bring it via Air Canada back to Manitoba, as distinct from being able to either buy it online, which I can't, or buy it at the Manitoba liquor store, which I can't. It's crazy. The other point that I wanted to comment on, Mr. Mayor, was with respect to growing the economy. Growing the economy is job one for each and every level of government, without which discussing any of the things that we want or need is moot, because you won't have the revenues to sustain the level of investment and maintenance that is required. That's why we believe that the City of Winnipeg needs to be an active and visible partner with the province in economic growth. You need a Chief Economic Development Officer, and you need that new fiscal deal that finally recognizes the critical role that Winnipeg and the Capital Region play in generating economic growth and revenues to provincial coffers.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
that. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Steve Snyder, to be heard with respect to item 2 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works. And Steve was joining us in person, but looks like he's not here, so we'll move on to David Linton, policy analyst with the Manitoba Trucking Association, to be heard in support of item 2 of the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works.
Morning, Mr. Linton. Good to see you again.
Good morning. Very nice to see you as well, councillors, Mr. Mayor. My name is David Linton. I'm the policy analyst with the Manitoba Trucking Association, and I'm also a registered professional planner. I appear today as a delegation on behalf of the MTA. The MTA is very pleased to support the recommendations of the Public Service Report on the Chief Peguis Trail Extension Project. The MTA also encourages the City of Winnipeg to initiate the procurement process for the third-party value for money analysis as quickly as possible. It has been 6 years, almost to the date, since the revised final version of the preliminary design study was completed and delivered to the city. After the value for money study is done, it will take time to have detailed designs produced and costs further estimated. The MTA looks forward to seeing these steps completed in as timely a manner as possible. The MTA supports the Public Service Report and the rational, quantitative approach taken by the Public Service. As they note on page 8, there are important socioeconomic benefits that the authors could not quantify. For example, the immediate and direct improvements that the completed extension will provide for the flow of traffic across the north quadrant of the city. It will complete a continuous regional arterial connection between the industrial areas of East Kildonan, St. Boniface, and Transcona with the industrial areas of northwest Winnipeg. This will improve the efficiency of both goods movement and labor movement through the entire northern half of Winnipeg, making our economy more productive and more competitive. The sooner this extension project is completed, the sooner that Chief Peguis Trail can be connected to Centreport Canada Way, resulting in further productivity for the economy. As I noted on a previous occasion, transportation is the land use that serves all other land uses and enables all other land uses to be viable. This is why the Chief Peguis Trail extension is also necessary for the development of precincts A, B, and D. But because of the connectivity and efficiency reasons described, the extension project will also bring economic benefits to other areas of Winnipeg, making existing developments in those areas more valuable. In other words, the extension project, once completed, will help to grow the city's tax base well beyond precincts A, B, and D. Cities are by their nature markets for goods, services, and for jobs. A well-connected arterial road network makes all of these markets more efficient. In this manner, completing the Chief Peguis Trail extension will make Winnipeg more competitive and more attractive for investment. For all of these reasons, the MTA expresses our support for this project and the recommendations of the Public Service Report. Thank you for your time this morning and for your service to the people of Winnipeg.
Good. Thank you very much, Mr. Linton. Any questions at all?
No, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Our next delegation is Krista Borys-Gavage, Director of Animal Advocacy and Legal and Government Affairs with the Winnipeg Humane Society, to be heard in support of EPC Reports Number 1 and Report 11.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. So good morning, Mr. Mayor and councillors. Thank you for allowing me to speak today on items 1 and 11 of your agenda, both of which deal with housing-related issues. The Winnipeg Humane Society is supportive of the efforts that the city is taking with respect to affordable housing. And I'll note that while the reports that I'm going to speak on focus on the more traditional aspects of housing projects, I'm going to add another discussion today, namely pet-inclusive housing and the need for more of it throughout Canada. Currently, according to research done by Humane Canada, approximately 60% of Canadian households include cats and dogs, and the companionship that pet provides has far-reaching positive impacts on health, well-being, and quality of life by reducing stress, depression, and loneliness. There's research from other jurisdictions that shows that this leads to a corresponding decrease in health costs as well as first responder costs as well. However, there is a Canada-wide shortage of pet-inclusive housing options, which disproportionately affects young people and vulnerable populations, including seniors and people with disabilities. As a result, the shortage of pet-inclusive housing is a major reason for surrenders of animals to shelters, who are already facing a capacity crisis nationwide. This is equally true in Winnipeg. A lack of pet-inclusive accommodations is the second most common reason for people surrendering their pets to the Winnipeg Humane Society. And I'll just give you for instance, in 2023, approximately 80 pets were surrendered to the WHS, citing the reason moving. So this systemic barrier needs to be addressed to put both homeowners and renters on an even playing field when it comes to pet ownership, in order to keep families together and reduce the strain on shelter capacity. To that end, the Winnipeg Humane Society has two recommendations to bring forward to you today. The first is with respect to Report 1. We recommend that a further metric be added for information gathering purposes, namely the number of pet-inclusive units included in the various city programs that this report seeks to monitor. The second is a bigger picture policy recommendation set out in the document submitted by the WHS that forms part of your agenda today. In a nutshell, I'll summarize that document, that proposal. The city is a funder of housing developments through either grant programs, including tax increment financing grants or tax credits. In the long term, the WHS is requesting that the city pass a policy requiring all developers accessing municipal taxpayer dollars for housing developments to dedicate a minimum of 50% of the affordable housing unit component of each project as pet inclusive. Now, we recognize that the specific report before you today is on the Housing Accelerator Fund, and it's a federal program that is already underway. We also acknowledge that the city cannot commit other levels of government with respect to their money. So what we are asking for is for this policy change to be reviewed and considered on a go-forward basis for any new projects or programs that will be receiving municipal funds in the future. I anticipate that EPC may have questions about the response that other stakeholders may have to this proposal, and concerns that we have heard fall generally under three specific categories that can each be addressed. So the first is damage to units from having pets residing there. Manitoba's Residential Tenancies Act allows landlords to obtain a pet deposit from a renter in the amount of 1 month's rent, which can then be used to fix any damage caused by the pet. In research conducted by Humane Canada, and this is 2019 research, but it showed that only 9% of pets are causing any damage at all in rental units, with the average pet damage cost being $191, so well below the amount of the average pet deposit. Disruptive animals being another concern that was raised. Landlords can, and most landlords that do have pet-inclusive housing, they can implement a pet policy, which allows for owners who have disruptive animals, whether it's noise, behavior, et cetera, to be evicted if the owner is not able to bring the animal under control. Now, the Winnipeg Humane Society is also willing to put some skin in the game in that regard here, to work with landlords to provide free responsible pet ownership courses for tenants where the landlord has requested it. And allergies. So designation of certain units or certain floors only as pet inclusive means that there can be separate areas for units with pet inclusivity and units without. Our goal today, because we understand that policy change is, well, it would be great for you to move a motion today adopting a policy change that's not realistic. So our goal today is to open the discussion on this critical issue facing renters and their furry family members. We encourage EPC to request further review and information from the public service on this issue, and we look forward to being part of the discussions on moving this issue forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Yes, you just answered the question I was going to ask, if you're willing to, be consulted in dialogue with whomever, whether it's, Councillor Duncan's committee or whomever, on a go-forward basis to talk about these things in the future.
Absolutely. And one further thing I should note is that we are making a similar request to the province as well, because we know that these housing projects have funding from multiple levels of government. And so we'll be meeting with them on this issue also.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions at all?
Presentation. Have you spoken with any of the apartment builders that are building some of these multifamilies now?
Yes,
And
we have.
what sort of feedback have they provided?
Without getting into specifics, because I don't want to pre-announce anything on behalf of developers that we have spoken to, some of these developers understand the market need for these units and will be including some pet-inclusive rental units within their development. The challenge is that when you leave it to the market and when we have a housing shortage, we can't rely on that to occur in every development, and we can't rely on it to occur in a manner that is going to meet the needs of the community, especially with respect to the affordable housing units.
Okay, yeah, I just, like a lot of the development in my area is pet friendly, so I wondered what feedback you had gotten from the developers. I think they know that the need is there, but to your point is not all of them maybe do, so,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a great thing about a goldfish, they don't chew the baseboards. Anyways. Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And Councillor Lukes had previously moved suspension of the rules to consider one additional delegation. So we have Louise May joining us via Zoom on item 2 of the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development.
Thank you. Maybe I'll just turn the chair to Councillor Lukes while we.
Sure.
So I'll be right back. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Ms. May. Your time starts now.
Good morning. Thank you very much for accommodating me today. I was hoping to be able to communicate with the mayor. I'm sorry he had to step away. Perhaps there can be another opportunity.
Sorry, just
Pardon me?
excuse me for a minute. Interestingly enough, everyone in the council building can hear this. So wherever he is, he can hear you. Because
Okay, thank you very much.
I was just getting a coffee and down in the offices, and it's loud
Okay.
and live, so,
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you for letting me know that.
okay.
Okay, so obviously I'm here in support of the motion to assemble the land that we know of as LeMay Forest. And I know that it is coming anyway to the floor, the motion that has been put forward by Councillor Russ Wyatt will be coming to the floor on March 27th. And our community grassroots team will have a whole list of people that will be presenting at that so that we can make sure that all of the information is on the plate. We've also been, very much connecting with as many councillors as we can to make sure that that information is to you. The question that I feel we most need at this time is it the province or the city who is going to do the expropriation, and which of those entities is, the right one, which of those entities can, and how can we move forward in an expedient way to get that to happen. So, I think you all know that we've been really struggling with the very immediate need, which is to stop the tree cutting. As you probably know, I have taken out a private prosecution against both John Winthrop and Mazar Yaryapur directly because of the tree cutting that they ordered on January 7th. Or January 8th, we were notified January 7th. They cut the trees on January 8th. I put the private prosecution in on January 8th. And we've had a number of different court case opportunities to hear John Winthrop under oath, as well as the municipal board hearings that we all attended and presented at, that we heard him say numerous things under oath that are quite concerning. And of course, the one that we're most concerned about is his insistence that they will continue to cut all of the trees down and leave the forest as a quote unquote meadow. which is not going to be a meadow. So, that is concerning. It's not due process, it never should have happened this way. The community and myself personally should have never had to step up to stop this way. But we are moving forward. And I think the only thing that we can do is expropriate. They have no appetite, and there's also continues to be indications that what they really want to do is tear down all the trees and build this massive, massive development, which is not appropriate, not acceptable, not really practical. Now we have a lot of information about the graveyard, which we really didn't have last time. So we've been working with, with all of the team of historians who've been doing the research. And they will be present at the March 27th meeting to talk about the information that they have. But I have a statement that I want to read from them today, right now, just to have it in your minds to mull over. The Manitoba Historic Resources Branch provided a permit to Tokal Development Group to develop LeMay Forest under certain conditions. However, that permit was based on a 2020 cemetery and archaeological report that were incomplete. The company that investigated the cemetery and other human remains that might exist elsewhere on the property did not have access to all of the registers for the Asile Richat. Because of privacy reasons, they were only provided with access to registers that were over 100 years old. Thus, they thought that the total number of children who died was 1,500, whereas in reality, it was nearly 3,400. They also understood that the human remains in the cemetery were moved in 1954 and that the cemetery was deconsecrated. Only the identified human remains, or 15 bodies, were registered as, and those were adults, were registered as moved in 1974. We now have both the records from the Sisters of Misericordia archives in Montreal and oral testimony from someone responsible for the move that children were never moved. The developer has stated the cemetery's location is not known, but in fact we have 2 federal topographical maps and 2 aerial photos which show the location. These errors and many others have led archivists and historians to conclude that the permit should be rescinded. So that is the ask that we have into the province. Sorry, this is me now talking. That was the quote from the historians. So we now have a request into the province to rescind that development permit. And we have a meeting, a group of us are going to meet with Minister Kennedy tomorrow on Wednesday to put forward and the new research, even newer than the last research that we heard publicly, even newer research will be presented to the minister tomorrow. So we expect that will be available publicly and to the councillors and to the mayor after tomorrow. So if that Historic Resources Branch permit is rescinded, that really strips away the argument that the city bureaucrats, the Director of Property and Plan Development has put forward to us, that the permit that the city made in October, which allowed the tree cutting to take place, and we've already talked about at the Property and Development meeting, all of the ways that permit is not acceptable and should never have been issued in the first place. Without the authority of the Provincial Historic Resources Branch permit, that permit that the city issued in October should be null and void. Okay, so that deals with our immediacy of the issue of cutting down the trees. That still is not in place. I am the only one personally who is stopping the trees from being cut down right now by my private prosecution. That was set to be seen initially by Manitoba Prosecution Services on February 20th. On February 20th, the prosecutor in charge said that he needed more time, and he set it back to April 15th. April 15th happens to be the day that the federal the Federal Migratory Birds Commission comes into effect from April 15th to October 15th. And because we have now proven that that it should be protected under that act because of the pileated woodpecker and the little brown bat, we should be able to use that act. But that did not stop Winthrop and team from cutting down. They cut down trees on October 23rd. April 14th. They cut down trees within that window last year. So we have to be careful about, we still have to be careful that we can continue to protect the trees while all of this very, very, very slow motion of expropriation comes into play. Like, even if we get the votes, which we hope to get the votes on the 27th, on March 27th, even if we get enough votes to that the city agrees to expropriate, then we still have that, what I'm understanding is like 9 to 18 months of due diligence and paperwork and all of that before we know that those trees are actually protected. So we still need collaboration between the city and the province to get rid of those permits, and so that a private citizen, me, doesn't have to take on the price of the lawyers and the stress and the resilience to hold that up. The city and the province need to be protecting that for us right now. Now back to quickly, I don't know what my time is. I don't have a timer on it here, but quickly, the reason I think the city should be taking this on and not the province, although I don't care who does it, but one of the two. And I really hope that the conversation is going on at that top level to figure out which of these two entities will be permanently the caretakers of this. I mean, there was an offer to purchase from Manitoba Habitat Conservancy, and I know that some of their funding runs out March 31st. We may have lost that as an option. I'm not sure. That they would have to speak to that, and hopefully they will speak to that themselves on the 27th. However, we know that expropriation by the city and by the province can be moved forward, I hope, trusting democracy by the will of the people, by the citizens who wish it to be done.
Thank you very much, Ms. May.
That's it?
Your
Okay.
time's up, but thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions at all? Seeing none, thank you for your clear presentation. Really do appreciate it. Okay,
Hey.
thank you.
Okay,
All right. Okay, is that all our delegates today?
yes, that concludes our
Okay.
delegations.
All right. Okay, moving then into our reports at this point then. Item number 1 is the monthly update on supportive housing, addiction, and social action indicators. And I think we have our staff member here, Mr. CEO.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Leslie Rappaport, Housing Accelerator Fund. To give an update.
All right. Good morning, Ms. Rappaport. Good to see you today.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just quickly mention a few things on this month's report. Also apologize for I'm losing my voice a little bit.
Oh, no problem.
So just a couple changes this month. The first page is the same as always. We give an overview of the applications approved through the city, development applications, development permits, and building permits. On page 2, we've made a slight edit to table 2, which outlines the different types of housing units per our HAF agreements, the Housing Accelerator Fund. We've just clearly identified multifamily within transit. Previous months, you may remember, we have the option of either identifying it within transit or missing middle or multifamily other. But given that we capitalize funding by addressing it within transit, we're clearly identifying that, and we're actually falling a little bit below in that area, so we don't see a risk of moving things over. Though I will add the caveat, these numbers can switch by year end with our CMHC report, so they may fluctuate slightly. The new addition also this month is on the last page. We've added a map. So we've now mapped where building permits are occurring over the time period, and you'll see also the coloring shows the transit map as well. So as a reminder for our HAF agreement, our definition of transit is 1,500 meters from rapid, frequent express, and frequent transit lines. So those are the top 3 of the 4 lines within the primary transit network. And then the last update is on table 3. We used to have a kind of complicated outline of housing units approved through affordable housing programs of the city. We've just simplified it to identify the number of units and then by which level of affordability. So this is a more clear definition, and of note, the number has jumped quite substantially from last month because on February 10th, we approved round 2 of our half capital grants, going to 12 local housing projects, and those are all on our website, and they're also listed in report number 11 later on the agenda as our half annual update. I'll leave it at that for now.
Thank you very much. Any questions at all on this? Yeah, this is always great reporting. Appreciate that, just to see. Now, obviously, this is, you know, the number of approvals that our staff have accomplished and achieved. Obviously, there's, you know, we hope that the development happens, that there's shovels in the ground this year, in line with the number of approvals that we see in this report. So there are factors certainly outside the City of Winnipeg's control, tariffs, costs associated with that developers have to, you know, take into account when they're deciding to build. So we really hope that there's a lot, we hope and anticipate there to be a lot of development and building this year.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay, any questions at all? Councillor Duncan.
I would just move, however, prior to doing that, just giving the feedback of, you know, sometimes we see monthly updates come forward and eyes roll back into the people's heads, and yet another monthly. This one, I think, you know, has great value, and at the mayor's State of the City, mentioning that now 14,000 unit approvals have come through. This is, you know, a contributing factor to that, so appreciate the updates.
I will say too, and that's such a thank you, and the value of measurements and numbers, right? Because you don't, again, you can't kind of, as the saying goes, control or improve what you don't measure. So by measuring this, it really gives us a sense of where we're at and what we can anticipate as well. So kudos to the entire team for the good work. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Duncan has moved this item. All those in favor, aye?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the approval of business improvement zone levies. Councillor Berwadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move the biz levies for 2025 as presented and by the public service recommendation.
Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I just want to take a moment actually just to say thanks to the biz zones because, you know, we approve these levies and they turn around and turn these into beautification within zones, and the flowers and other things, initiatives within the business really do make a difference. So I want to take a minute just to acknowledge the great work of our biz zone folks as well. So.
I'd like to add to that. Like I at one point was an executive director on the smallest biz, which I think still is the smallest biz in St. Norbert in the city. But just the ability for the biz zones to leverage other funding and to just really contribute to the beautification of our city. Incredible work, incredible.
Great, thank you very much. Item number 3, I do have a couple questions about item number 3, which is the mill rates for education, support levy, and special levy.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have our CFO, Tracy Graham, as well as Manager of Tax and Finance from Assessment and Taxation, Tanasian Chishin.
Good morning to both of you. Thank you for being here. So we do have the report that is before us. If I could ask just a couple of questions. So am I reading this report right? I think I have about 4 questions here. The first is on the confirmation of the school tax increases. So just to confirm that the school boards have approved tax increases ranging from about 10 to 16%?
Correct.
That's correct, okay. And then, you know, in comparison to the city's tax increase, so for the average homeowner, the additional amount they'll pay due to these school tax increases is really 2 to 3 times higher than the city's own increase. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
That's correct? Okay. Have we ever, to your knowledge, seen school tax increases this high before?
Not as long as I've been here.
Okay. Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, just not as long as I've been with the department, which is only 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years? Okay, all right. And then in regards to the Sorry, just pull the mic down, Tan, if you don't mind there, if you can. Sorry, there we go. Perfect, thank you. And then the other one is in regards to the mill rate adjustment in a reassessment year. So this is a general reassessment year. The city has actually lowered its mill rate to account for that. But from this report, it looks like the school divisions increased their mill rate instead. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, all right. I thank you for answering those, and I wanted to ask those questions because often, and we do all we can, I know when we send out, our taxes, the paper, we break it into two so people can see clearly the education amount and the municipal amount, and they are two different amounts. We get the calls, even when education taxes go up, our staff get the calls, why are my property taxes going up? And I know that we have to, we have to explain to folks time and time again that there are two different amounts on the tax bill. So what we're talking about here today is specific to the education portion of the bill that will be forthcoming. So I just wanted to be really clear on that. So Councillor Edie and then Councillor Lukes.
Just to clarify, I heard on CBC radio that the accurate increase from the Winnipeg School Division is 5%, which I've heard them raise a bit more than that over the last 2 decades, some years. Is it correct? It's 5%?
The 5% that they have spoke to is the percentage increase to the mill rate. So it doesn't represent the tax increase because it is a reassessment year.
Right. Anyway, okay.
Councillor Lukes?
No, I've got the chart right here. That's perfect. I just wanted to see the chart.
Any other questions related to this at all?
No.
Okay, all right.
yeah.
Councillor Brawadi?
One more question.
Well, Your Worship, again, if we were to use the same type of math where the Winnipeg School Division is saying that it's a 5% increase, because of our decrease in the mill rate, we would technically be, if we were to use that same metric, we're lowering taxes by 3.3%. We know that's not the case. Winnipeg School Division, just for Councillor Edie's education there, their requirements in terms of what they're raising from property taxes is going from $204 million in 2024 to $232 million in 2025. That's a 13.7% increase if we're using the same type of metrics that we use when we say we're increasing property taxes by that 5.95% for 2025. So these, again, like I've been on council now, I guess I'm the Dean of Council. I've never seen numbers like this, I can say, in my 18 years on council. The smallest increase, St. James Assiniboia School Division at 10.4%, all the way up to 18.4% in Louis Riel. I don't want to say, credit, but I mean, River East Transcona is being at least honest about the increase, and the number is 14.4%. I won't pretend to be, intimately involved in the finances of the school divisions and what's happening from the education grants from the province. But these are massive increases. And like, as the mayor said, we're going to be hearing from our taxpayers, from residents. And, these rates are going to affect families. It's another hit that we're going to see on our bills. So legally, we have to move this for the collection to occur. The province makes us do it. We don't have a say in the matter per se. So I will move with some reluctance the Winnipeg Public Service recommendation as per the Public Schools Act that we adopt the necessary bylaws required to fix and impose taxes sufficient to meet the portion of the cost of education required to be raised through levies on assessable property within the city of Winnipeg in 2025. That's what I'm moving.
Thank you for the motion. I will just state clearly again, these are not municipal taxes. These are not City of Winnipeg Council taxes. This is education taxes really levied by the respective school divisions. I think Tanis has a comment, though, before we vote on this. Go ahead. Thank you.
I just wanted to add an important point that the province has implemented a new tax credit this year, the homeowners affordability tax credit, which is up to $1,500 against the school tax. So it will help mitigate that for some of the residents, and it's only applicable on a principal residence.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I couldn't really.
Okay, sorry, can you just speak right to the mic and just say it loud again? Sorry, thanks.
An important point to note is that the province has implemented a new tax credit in 2025, which is the homeowners affordability tax credit, which is up to $1,500 against school taxes on a principal residence. So that will help mitigate the impact.
Okay, sorry, I think Councillor Eadie's been waiting, and then Councillor Duncan. Councillor Eadie?
And just, I want this clarified. I can be educated, but I used to be a trustee, and is it not more efficient to administrate a property tax from one level of government rather than creating two separate bureaucracies to work on the same bill?
We can only implement what the province tells us to implement, so I'm not going to comment on that.
Yeah, we're required and compelled legally to do this work. Yeah. Councillor
I just
Duncan?
want to be clear, it's cutting separate checks is administratively costly.
Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Eadie on that. However, we only have so much control over these matters. In regards to the homeowners affordability tax credit, I have had residents ask, and apparently it's been communicated to them by the city, do they have to claim a primary residence to receive this? And if they do not claim a primary residence, do they not receive this tax credit?
So they do need to designate their principal residence with us. However, if they previously were receiving the education property tax credit, which is the former tax credit, that designation carries forward to the new credit. They do not need to redesignate. If they miss the deadline to submit that designation, then they can claim it on their personal income tax return.
The deadline being?
It was March 15th.
So just so everybody's crystal clear here, that was not communicated to homeowners that they need to claim their primary residence potentially.
Well, most of them already would have this designation in place from the education property tax credit.
Hopefully most is 99.9%.
Okay. Are there other questions at all? For this clerk?
I do.
Councillor Brawadi and then Councillor Lukes.
My question for Tanis is, in 2024, Manitobans got a 50% credit on their property tax bill for their education taxes. How many people in 2025 will lose out because it's now basically capped at this $1,500 amount? A, and then B, also because of the increase. Is this $1,500 credit that's coming in this year going to be indexed for next year because of the runaway rates that education taxes are going up?
Well, we haven't been provided any information yet on what 2026 credits will look like. How many people will be impacted depends on the value of their home. So depending on the mill rate within the particular school division will dictate how many people are impacted. But the difference being that this new tax credit is calculated on 100% of the school tax as opposed to the rebate was 50%.
In 2024, how many people received a 50% credit that was greater than $1,500?
I don't have those numbers with me, but we can try to get that for you.
Thank you.
Send to everyone.
Councillor Brawadi, are you done?
Yeah, and perhaps, I mean, would it be also possible to run that for 2025 based on the new, much higher property or education taxes?
Yeah, right now we're in the middle of testing, so it will be based on test data that we have, but we can get an estimate.
Thank you.
Councillor Lukes?
So just to clarify, the $1,500 credit is based on a value of the home?
Correct.
And what value was that?
Well, it depends on the mill rate within the school division. So, based on the new mill rates that we're looking to have approved today, the threshold to receive the full $1,500 ranges from $211,000 up to $308,000, depending on the school division.
Is there a way to summarize this for me to provide to my residents in the Pembina Trails? Like or is there something more simplified, like I've made my notes here, but that you could summarize to us that I can then share with residents? I don't want to get it wrong, but you folks know what you're doing. Could you summarize what's going on?
Yeah, I'll take that back to our department and see what we can do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions at all?
Just a comment to Councillor Lukes. I think it would be useful to develop a little web tool where you could put in your address. We could have on record your 2024 assessment, your 2024 municipal and education taxes based on your school division, and then do something similar for 2025 so that people can see. I mean, obviously, we've got an increase in this year, but just so that people could see where the majority of the increase is going to, I think it'd be useful for us to have a little tool where people could check their own circumstance.
I've got a comment. Councillor Lukes wants to speak specific to that comment. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
100%, because people will not understand and they will feel it's the city. And I think it's very fair that people understand what is provincial education tax or what is city. So support you 100% on that.
I think there may be, even not to jump too far ahead, but I think there are ways right now that are being looked at by the department, by corporate communications, and as well as to how to make sure this is clearly explained and educated, to educate the public on this very thing. So that is key for sure. I think everyone, that has to happen, that there needs to be clear instruction and education to the public of what the difference is and where the differences are, the amount, and why. Councillor Duncan?
I apologize for belaboring this point, but so we'll just dumb it down here. If you did not claim a primary residence, should you own more than one residential property, if you did not claim a primary residence, you will not be receiving a tax credit up to $1,500. Is that correct?
Correct, on your property tax bill. However, you can claim it on your personal income tax return.
Thank you.
Only those whose values are at a certain amount anyways, right?
Right.
Your property value, because you just talked about the property value threshold, right? If you're above a certain value threshold, then
Yeah.
Well,
1,500 is moot. You don't have access to that.
right, you still get the 1,500 though.
Right. Okay. Right. Moving, Councillor Santos and then Councillor Edie.
Sorry, just one quick question on Schedule B. I think you guys gave a bit of a sample home by school division. This is only the mill rate. You don't actually show what the school division's rates are.
No, scroll up. There, right there. Right
Oh, okay, so Schedule A, this is the education purposes, so the change between all the school divisions I see is in the middle column. It shows what the percentage increase is from each school division, is that correct?
Are you back on Schedule A now?
Yeah, Schedule A, yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Schedule A is the amounts to be raised for education purposes, so these are the provincial levies that are being on the property. And then in the change, I can see it in the middle column, that's not gray and green. I'm seeing the change percentage changes, those are the ones that the divisions have imposed, right?
That's the change in the dollars that they have
Okay,
asked.
and then on Schedule B is a summary of school tax increase on sample home by school divisions. This is the mill rate change, right, which is property tax change.
This isn't a mill rate change, it's the tax increase. So
Okay.
they're different in a reassessment here.
Okay. So when I look at the dollar increase column, is that for the year or per month?
Oh, per year.
This is per year, what the potential increase per year on a home with the change in the mill rate, is what I'm seeing. Because I'm seeing there's a difference in the mill rate that's changing. That's why I'm confused a little bit with mill rate and proposed
Yes,
school taxes.
it's because the value of the home increased in 2025 itself. So that's why there's a difference in the mill rate increase and the tax increase. So on average, homes in the city of Winnipeg increased 9.5%.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah, Schedule A of this report is very helpful to show the total change and then the mill rate, but most people just talk about the average, homeowner just talks about the overall percentage of tax increase. They don't really look at the mill rate as often, but nonetheless, thank you. Okay, all right. Councillor Barwadi moved this report. All those in favor, reluctantly or other?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item number 4, local improvements, result of November 5th. Advertisement of proposed asphalted concrete lane,
Okay.
pavement local improvement project, and then 5 as well as another one. So Councillor Lukes, can you move 4 and 5?
I'd like
please?
to move items number 4 and item number 5.
All right, all those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Actually, for item number 6, I'm going to ask our CFO to come back to the desk, please. That's okay? The
Yes,
table?
Mr. Chair, we also have our Deputy Director of Legal Services, Sarah Rentz, here to speak to this.
Good morning, Ms. Rentz.
Morning.
Thank you again for coming. Item number 6 is Winnipeg Police Service Headquarters litigation. I'm going to ask our CFO, maybe, or Ms. Rentz, either one, to just maybe clarify. There's been a lot of questions related to, this in essence is a receivable. How can we book a receivable? I know that you've consulted with our external auditors, KPMG, as far as the timing and whether or not we could actually begin to record this. But maybe just explain, if you could just explain this in greater detail as to how can we do this and why do it? Why do this now to actually begin to record this in our financials?
Well, under Canadian accounting principles, we were legally entitled to report it as a receivable when the settlement was achieved. But we were conservative and prudent and wanted to make sure that that receivable was backed and protected by registered securities. That took a little bit of time. So there are 6 properties that are registered and secured, totaling $28 million, which is the amount that would be appropriate if we do not receive a cash payment in 2026. Those secured properties are backed by independent valuations, so you can appreciate that's taken a little bit of time in order to pull all that information together in order to have a complete file that we could confidently record the receivable as part of the year-end results for 2024.
Okay. Any questions, or Ms. Rentz, anything to add to that at this point? Or?
That was basically going to be my update.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Yeah, right. So that is the summary. Thank you. Councillor Edie, then Councillor Duncan.
Just one question. So you had to get the assessed value of these secured properties. That their assessed values are as of 2024?
Their current assessed values, so I don't know
Like
exactly when those
2025?
were complete, but within 2023 and 2024.
Okay.
Councillor Duncan?
Okay, so those that email and call and say, how can you include the 20 whatever $million into your budget? You're saying that it's balanced, but you don't have the money. Our answer would be?
Well, I want to make sure we don't confuse accounting with budget. We did not include this amount in our balanced budget. We did not include it in the budget numbers at all. It was part of the final year-end accounting adjustments. Also to clarify, if we are in a year of deficit, which we were forecasting, what we report in the quarterly forecast is the general fund. That is not the consolidated results for the city. That includes most of the tax-supported departments, but it doesn't include, for example, water and waste or transit or any of the SOAs. So On a quarterly basis, it doesn't show the full amount, and at the end of the year, we would have been in a surplus position anyway on a consolidated basis. So we're not required to balance with actual results the general fund at the end of the year. But what we are required to do is to make sure we don't have a deficit in the financial stabilization reserve, which we were forecasting. What we're required to do is to have a plan to replenish or at least have a positive number in the FSR within a 12-month period following the year end, which we were well down the path of already planning that. I think if everyone recalls, we were proposing a $3.7 million transfer of unused funds from transit, which I think we need to bring back and put back on the table. But so the unfunded deficit without this adjustment would have been about $4.9 million, which is pretty small in the scheme of things. And we were well down the path of having a plan to make sure that we were on side with that requirement.
Okay, Councillor Duncan, carry on, and then Councillor Lukes.
Okay, so again, just to simplify it for the folks watching at home.
Sure.
The monies that were awarded to the City of Winnipeg regarding the police headquarters were put where and why are they not a part of our budget? I'm hearing that they were put towards the FSR and not budgeted to a specific line item. If you could just, for everybody who has never done their own taxes or doesn't budget, it's not their strength, there's many out there.
Sure, no problem. So we booked a receivable as at year end, so that's where the money is. It's reported as a pledge to collect funds. I think that's important. We're legally entitled to those funds, and we have security for those funds. So I think it's important to recognize that that we're going to collect those funds. So I think that is prudent. It did not go to, it wasn't part of balancing the budget, but it did, the difference when booking the receivable would have been considered as part of other income in 2024. And so the difference went to the FSR in order to seed that balance. But again, that doesn't have to be cash received. It is, that's an accounting adjustment. So when we collect those funds, then we'll pay off the receivable in our books, and we'll have the cash for that.
Councillor Lukes?
Sure. So then the securities that are in place, so if the payment in full is made within 36 months, that's great. If it's not made within 36 months, then we trigger the some sort of act, I guess, to secure and sell the properties.
Yep, so absolutely, that's what happens. So if we don't receive the cash payment in 2026, it will trigger a legal process where we will trigger the sale of those properties and collect on the sale of proceeds of those properties.
And if we collect more on the sale of those properties, where does the difference go?
Oh, we don't collect that. We're only secured for the $28 million that we're owed.
Got it.
The difference would go to the property owners.
Got it. Okay. Okay, thank you.
And my final question is do we have, so we've taken this step as, you know, to make sure that the people of Winnipeg, the taxpayers of Winnipeg, get what they're owed, what the judge said they're owed. So this is a move on behalf of the people of Winnipeg to make sure we secure that which is owing to them, which is, you know, I think a very good and prudent move. Thank you. Do we have a status, though? I mean, there's still a window of time here now, several months, where basically that cash payment could be made to the City of Winnipeg. Do we have an update as far as how that is going?
So I have limited updates. We have external counsel that's handling this file for us. The last update I got from them was no update. So there hasn't been any payments made to date. There is like an escalation
Yes.
to the amount of the settlement that we're owed. So March 23rd, 2026 is kind of the deadline. That's the 36 months. And so that's when we can secure the $28 million judgment.
If they came forward with a payment today, like the full amount, it wouldn't be 28, it'd be something less, right? In this year, I think it's 26 in this year or something like that?
I think it's 22 point, So if it's made within 24 months, so that would be by March 23rd, 2025, it's 22.5 million.
Okay,
If they
and then
make
after
it-
March 20, after, like, if it's into April this year, it goes up, right?
Right, so if it's within 36 months, it's 23.5, and then if they
23.5,
miss
okay.
that 36-month deadline, that's when it jumps to 28.
Okay, okay, I think those are important numbers as well. Just thank you for the reminder that, you know, the settlement was included an escalator, basically.
Right.
A payment made by a certain date, a certain amount, and if it keep, you know, to keep going all the way, as you said, till basically next year, then we're up to 28 million, so, okay. All right, Councillor Lukes?
So if we have to initiate legal action to sell the properties, how long does that all take? Is that, I mean, I guess it depends from
It
a
could take a
market
while.
standpoint.
It could take a while.
Right?
Yeah.
That's
It'll
correct.
what?
It could take a while.
It's hard to predict exactly
What's
how
a
long
while?
that would take.
Well, the properties would have to be sold, so
Sure, however long that
however
takes.
long that takes,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, Councillor Eady, you get the final question, unless Councillor Brody, do you have a question?
Oh,
Okay, Councillor Eady, you get the final
Anyway, so in regards to this receivable, and we have external legal, do you know the value of the payables related to this whole settlement?
Like how much we've spent in legal costs?
Yeah, or do we have any payable set up for paying that legal, or, yeah, do you know how much it's cost us so far? Because the court awarded costs or whatever as well, right? But we're incurring more cost after the decision. Do you know how much money that's costing us?
So there was a council decision back in decision-making history. There is a event recommendation 1 to 3. If those aren't approved, then over an expenditure be approved to the Legal Services Department 2023 operating budget of a total of $6.4 million. So that was the estimate at the time.
At the time?
Yeah, but that would have been without the settlement.
Oh.
So that was, if the settlement wasn't approved, that was the additional money that we were asking for to go ahead and fight the actions in court. I don't know the
But the
totals of
settlement
what
was
we've spent
approved.
to date, but I'm sure we could
Track that down?
easily track that number down.
Sure how much it costs us? Thanks.
Okay,
It's expensive.
Yes,
External
right.
counsel's expensive.
right, exactly. Okay, thank you for that clarity. We really do appreciate it. Okay, Councillor Brody has moved this matter. Item number 6, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you to both of you. Item 7, Councillor Brody, this is the Municipal Canada Community Building Fund Annual Indexing Rate of Construction Inflation.
Okay, I'd like to thank Councillor, Your Worship, as well as Councillor Wyatt for moving this motion forward. This recognizes the fact that some important key grants that municipalities in Canada and in Manitoba receive, the Canada Community Building Fund, formerly the gas tax, as well as the provincial grants have been frozen at low rates, way below construction inflation in particular. This is a call to have AMM and FCM lobby their respective governments to do something closer to actual inflation. So very supportive.
Yeah, thank you. And you do good work as our rep on AMM, Councillor Brody, so appreciate your support because I know you'll take this and you know, be our voice at AMM on this, so thank you very much, appreciate it. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 8, which is customer service and wait time improvements within 311 service. Just so everyone's, no, we will break at noon, so in about 14 minutes, we'll take a break for an hour. So, but we do have Ms. Felicia Wiltshire here, so maybe we'll call her forward to answer some questions and bring some highlights of this report, if that's okay. Thank you so much. This is, I know you kind of touched on this in one of the last times you were before us, but now we do have the report. This is a good news story. Maybe just kind of walk us through the highlights of the improvements that we've seen here.
Yeah, so this is just an update on the budget spending for 2024. So, I mean, our notable highlight is the drop in wait times, which is what the goal was with the additional funding. So what we utilized that funding for in 2024 was hiring 12 new FTEs. And of those positions, we put 9 towards CSR ones. So those are our folks that are answering phone calls, they're right on our front lines, they're answering social media, emails, and such. And then in addition, we added 2 KML positions, so that's our knowledge management liaisons. So they're the folks that are writing our scripts and helping with that behind the scenes liaison with the departments. And we also added an additional Council 311 position, so there was only 1. We've added up to 2 now, which help to increase the hours and respond to the emails that are coming in from Council quicker. And then we also added funding to our overtime budget. So as I've mentioned previously, when we see an unexpected surge in calls, we call staff in on overtime, so having that additional budget available really helps to keep our call volumes low. And then we did carry some funding across into 2025. As we had discussed previously, we were working with CUPE to adjust some of the salaries to our frontline 311 operators. So we reserved that funding because those negotiations were still going on at the end of the year.
Okay, great. This is a really good news story. Commend you and your entire team for basically getting the results. At the end of the day, this is about the people of Winnipeg and better, faster customer service to the residents of the city, and that's evident here. I have a couple of questions about, it's not in the report, but just kind of future. The things I'm thinking about, and I'm wondering if already, as you see these things, you are anticipating perhaps increased pressure on our 311 staff. And that's related to, for example, at the end of June, the transit network changeover. Our assumption, I think, is members of council, and probably for you too, and your members and the transit team, is that when that really exciting but significant shift happens, routes will change, you'll probably get in 311 calls, where's my bus, where do I go now? Like, are you anticipating all that, and what kind of work, you know, in advance does 311 in your department do with, you know, I see Bjorn here, the transit team and others?
Yeah, so we've been working really closely with Winnipeg Transit. That is going to be a substantial change. As we've discussed before, transit calls still remain one of the top call drivers at 311. So we know that the changeover in routes is going to increase that number. So we've worked with transit. We've been doing specialized training for our staff. We've been working with them on for a number of months, just so that our staff are going to be familiar with the new routes and helping residents navigate. But in addition, we are hiring dedicated staff members. We're actually in the process of recruiting, hiring and training right now. We are going to put them in a very specialized training that is only related to the new transit routes. And then so that when folks are calling, there will be an IVR message. As soon as you phone, they will say press 1 for transit inquiries. You will get into that queue of staff who have that specialized training. We're just taking a stab at how many staff we think we're going to need and what the call volumes will be for June when it launches. We'll see how it goes. And then if we find that the volume of calls exceeded what we were anticipating, we know that there will be another surge in September. We anticipate that when the back to school crowd comes. So we will make adjustments to staffing levels at that point.
Okay, great. The chatbot.
Yes.
Yes, maybe just kind of give us an update on that.
Yes, so we're in the process of doing some finalized testing on the chatbot. We're running through one more round of updates utilizing internal staff 311. What we anticipate doing is around the middle of April is we would like to give councillors an inside internal link and give you and your EAs a couple of weeks to also test out the chatbot for us and give us some feedback just to find out if it's meeting your expectations as well. And then we've built ourselves some time in following that through the month of May to do any final adjustments that may be required. And right now we're anticipating to launch in June.
In June, okay, thank you. 2 other quick questions. You just heard the discussion that we had, kind of robust discussion with our staff about the significant changes school boards have made related to taxes and the education taxes, which are climbing, you know, it seems like at unprecedented rates here. I guess, is the 311 team ready for those inevitable calls?
Yeah, every year we see a surge in calls when the tax bills go out. And so we're running staff through training, and similar to how I had mentioned with transit, where we have an IVR redirect, we do a similar thing with 311 when it comes to tax bills. So we have staff that have been trained. They're not our newest staff. They're staff that have a bit more experience, because we know that those tax bill questions take a lot of time. And so folks get rerouted to those staff members who have the experience. And so we work very closely with the department to ensure that our scripting is updated and ready for every tax year.
Follow up on that, and then one more other question. Is there, like, I guess, does our staff answer all the questions related to education taxes, or does our staff ever turn it over to the respective school boards if I'm a resident and I have further questions about my education tax, does the city staff have to answer all the questions, or do we actually turn it over at some point to school boards for them to answer specific detailed questions?
So we would answer as many questions as we can. We wouldn't redirect to the school boards, like we wouldn't do a live transfer of a resident, but there would be a point in the scripting where they would be given contact information for further questions.
Okay. And the final question is the inevitable seasonal question. Spring is coming, with it flowers and with it potholes.
Yes.
I was listening to a live broadcast out of the UK just this morning, in fact, and they need $34.5 billion in road construction to deal with their potholes. So I thought, okay, we're not alone. But so I'm just wondering, is staff, what kind of training, I guess, does staff take specific to the inevitable and seasonal pothole calls?
Yeah, so we run, it's already complete, but we would have run spring training a few weeks ago, because it is items like the ice, it's the frozen catch basins, it's potholes, it's all those seasonal things. So the one thing with 311 staff is that they are regularly pulled off the phones and put through training. We like to refresh them every time the season changes on those seasonal items that come up. So all of that retraining on potholes and how to deal with it would have been completed already.
That's great to know. Thank you. Other questions at all? Councillor Lukes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wiltshire. As you know, 311 is the front line. It's our customer service ability to serve the residents. So I just want clarification here, if I'm understanding this correctly, that that we directed the public service to provide a comprehensive report on progress to date on improved customer service and wait times, including the plan to achieve continued improvements and value for money for the additional funding provided. So that was the request. So are these 6 paragraphs on page 5 the comprehensive plan?
Yeah, so what we were reporting on is what we spent the funding for 2024 on, and the results that we achieved. The result that we were after was lowering wait times.
So including the plan to achieve continued improvements. So where is the plan to achieve continued improvements? Maybe I'm missing it here.
So I did not do this as a forward-looking document, but rather as a report on where 2024's funding was spent.
Right, so I guess when I read it, the plan to achieve continued means continue on, future improvements. So we don't have that plan, is that what you're saying?
That's correct. This is a 2024 retrospect on that.
Are we getting that plan, or?
My understanding was this was what was requested, but if there's a request for something additional, we can do that.
So I guess, and maybe this is a request to the CAO. So this is great that I sit here and I listen, that the chat's coming online, that we've got the transit coming online, the tax bills. Like, it would be really great if councillors had an idea of what 311 is working on. Like, if I were to ask any councillor who's not in the room right now, they probably don't know that we've got chat coming online in, I don't know, what did you say, July or June or something? It would be great for the councillors to know that we're increasing trained transit plan staff for June or for July and September. Like, is there a way you could put a summary together, an email summary, so that we know that, because this is the front line of customer service, and REA's answer, you know, we're after 311, I guess, or before 311, but and about the tax bills, that 311 will, it's very good to know that you will be redirecting to experienced people to answer, say, the tax questions or the transit questions. I don't know, I just have always sort of expected some kind of plan that we can see, that we know what's coming, because it is the front line. And I think it is a little different than, the different departments, what plans they have. So I guess that's my request, Mr. CAO, if we could have a summary or something on what's coming down the tube so councillors understand.
Absolutely. Through the chair to you, Councillor Lukes, be happy on behalf of the public service. I am honored to be a departmental representative that goes and does training within 311, and your messaging of the front lines and supporting the front lines connected into the organization and the role of mayor and council. Everything I can do, then Director Felicia Wiltshire as well, I know will do everything in her power to integrate those various parts. I know from my own time here with the City of Winnipeg, when people talk about the good old days, the pre-311, when everybody had everyone's phone numbers in the context of running municipal elections, for example, those good old days were not necessarily the good old days. And so it's always a proud moment to meet the new recruits at 311 and the staff that are diligently working behind the scenes, as well as working with councillors' offices. Whatever we can do with the new initiatives coming online later this summer, to Felicia Wiltshire's point, we'd be happy to bring folks together.
Or you'll just do it, and do you think, what other continuous improvements, what other initiatives we're doing? Because this is about customer service, right? And I don't know, I know it's a big priority of the mayor's, and it's always been a big priority of mine. If there's other continuous improvements that you plan on doing, just to share that, because 311 is the front line of customer service delivery. So I would appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lukes. Through the chair, I'd be happy to share one of the great surprises of my interim role over the last 9 months has been able to see the good work, and anything I can do through my office to help share the good news and good work that is being done with you and your offices, and work together in that. I'll do everything in my power to support that. No motion required.
Because we had asked, and I finally did get a response, that councillors weren't made aware of when we had 311 services on the weekends. If you can include that in there too, the hours that we can access 311 on the weekend, because I was accessing it, no one told me that we didn't have access. Then when we did have access, I had no idea we had access. So customer service is all about communication, and I think we can do a better job. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion then Councillor Santos maybe to move this report, please.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Wiltshire. Okay, at this time, we'll take a break then, our lunch break, and we'll be back at 1 o'clock. Thank you. Good afternoon. We are back reconvening the Executive Policy Committee meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We're on to item number 9, French Language Services 5-year bylaw update. I do see we have Nicole here. If anyone has any questions related to the French language service, I do. So if you don't mind, please, Nicole, I do have a couple of questions. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for being here today. And maybe just to highlight, on the recommendations here, I do appreciate that we're going to be working more with our community partners as well. We want to make sure we are doing a very good job of delivering services in both official languages. And maybe just talk about some of the work that's already been done with, for example, Société de la Francophonie Manitobaine and the others as well, about and how that can inform and really enable us to do a better job.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that the biggest change that we did was now that we're more in the community, even for public engagement, they're better understanding where the restrictions and barriers are for us when providing French, and I get a better understanding of where the need is. So I think this report, what it's doing is going to realign our 5-year plan and also see where the priorities the community want within, obviously, resources that we have, but also what they would like to see and how that could better offer services in both official languages.
Okay. And then, obviously, we have the historic Francophone community, but newcomers, so many newcomers, perhaps for whom French is their first language. Like, are we seeing an increase in the number of, would we identify as new people, newcomers to Winnipeg that really need our services available in French?
Yes, that's a huge change that we've seen in the last 10 years, and even more so probably. But right now what we're seeing is even if it's not their first or second or third language, it is their fourth or fifth language, and they don't have English before that. So what's happening is they're trying to find affordable housing. It is not in the Rail District. I am not there at the airport to let them know that if they're not in the Rail District, they will not get services in French. And so then they go elsewhere, and then they realize quickly that basic services, even going to the library with their children after school, is not something they can necessarily do in French.
Okay. And as far as 311, maybe, Felicia, just if someone requests services in French, is that always available?
Yeah, so we are finding that that is one of the places that we are struggling with recruitment, is finding folks to take French calls, and also that their English is we're finding French candidates, but their English skills might not also be where they need. So we are working very closely. Nicole's been working very closely with 311 to help with recruitment, to also help redirect some of our calls. So she has some staff at our service centers that do take some of our calls and emails as well, so that we can help deliver that service. But in addition, we do have the services of CanTalk. So I know it is not the preferred service to use for translation, but it is the backup that we are able to use.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this today? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Nicole. Merci. Thank you.
Public service recommendations?
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Items 10, 11, 12, I wonder, Councillor Duncan, if you're willing to move those?
Yes, I am. Thank you. So moved.
Okay, all in favor of 10, 11, 12?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, carried. Thank you. Item 13, single source approval of the 12-month contract for the provision of Microsoft licensing services, purchase reference 68-2022. Councillor Berwadi.
So moved.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Item 14, Councillor Lukes, would you look at renaming this, would you look at moving this renaming matter, please?
Sure. I'll move this motion to rename Bonaventura Park.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank Welcome Winnipeg for their work. Any questions at all? I do see, so Cecil was available earlier, but okay. All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item 15, the Winnipeg Food Council 2024 Annual Report. Councillor Lukes, would you move item 15, please?
I will. I'll move item 15, the
All-
annual report.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 16, the Winnipeg Food Council 2025 Work Plan and Operating Budget. We do have a small, well, we have an amendment, just to clarify something related to align with the budget we adopted. So, Madam, or Councillor Lukes, would you move this as amended?
I will move this report as amended.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We do have item 17, that we already voted on that, right? We have 17 and 18?
Yes, we voted to suspend the rules to consider number 17.
Item number 17, Councillor Berwadi.
So moved.
Okay, that is related to citizen member appointments for Concordia Hospital Board of Directors. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And item 18, what's item 18 again, Madam Clerk?
It's a new business motion from Councillor Duncan regarding the permitting dashboard.
Okay. All right, on that one, are you?
Thank you. So essentially, well, I will have it read into the record, actually. I just learned last week that items that are presented, those that are not in the gallery cannot actually see that. So before I put a couple words on the record. If I could just have the clerk read the therefore be it resolves.
Oh, sorry.
Yes.
I was waiting for your comment. So therefore be it resolved that to bring Winnipeg's public permit and approval timeline tracking in line with the best practice standards in other cities, City Council direct the CAO to ensure that a single permit dashboard is posted prominently on the Property Planning and Development Department's website, which will include the following features within 60 days. 1, timelines for approval of all major permit categories, including development, building, and occupancy permits. 2, measurement of historic monthly data for each posted category starting in January 2025. 3, a specific track of days taken between submission of development permit applications and their acceptance as a completed application by the department under a new category to be called Development Application Completion Review, as if it was a category of permit. And 4, tracking and reporting on the percentage of all permit timelines in each category which exceeds service timeline standards.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, with this motion, it will bring full transparency to timelines, in particular looking at that development permit timeline. Currently, the building permit timeline is, embedded within the department's site. We're not asking here for the department to go back and dig up information into 24, 23, or any of the other years that we received some complaints, some feedback. We're looking to move forward to see how we can better those processes and ultimately how we can justify making changes, whether that be to staffing levels, whether that be to processes, to ensure that we have all of the data on the table, fully transparent to the public, to ensure that we are doing the best job possible to make our processes as quick as possible and to ensure that we're supporting our department with the needs that they potentially could utilize with some of this information just being as public as possible.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on this matter? I do thank the councillor for this motion. I think it is important that we do have kind of a baseline and benchmarks related to all of our timelines on all of our major permit categories. I do recognize as well the province is making some changes to their legislation, and so I think that I'll be supporting this motion today and perhaps even between now, today and council. No doubt maybe, the chair will have further discussion with the director to see if there's any other information that's provided that could further shape the motion. So I'll support today, understanding that there'll be probably dialogue between now and next week's council meeting as well. Councillor Lukes?
Yeah, I think this is a good motion in the fact that it will provide transparency with the folks that are seeking permits and wanting to do development and understanding the process and just being more transparent and accountable. I think it's a good motion.
Okay. Okay, we'll call the question on this then. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, carried, thank you. Moving on to Audit Committee. Implementation of the Audit Recommendations Report 2024, Quarter 4. I believe a lot of these recommendations are related to, if I've got this right, when I looked at the fleet management. And Councillor Bawadi, anything on this before you move this item? We do.
No, not really. Just again, progress being made in many files. Just move to receive the Q4 report as information.
Okay, Councillors, I know we do have our auditor here.
Yeah,
Mr. Jason Ayer.
Yeah.
Okay, so the matter's been moved, and then we'll ask some questions now.
Okay. Perfect.
Hello, welcome. Good to see you today. Councillor Lukes, go ahead with some
Yeah, I just have some questions on the workforce management audit. And just to understand, I guess recommendation 7, if you could, there's a couple of recommendations, maybe just a little more clarification on it.
Okay, recommendation 7 was with respect to the span of control. So in our audit, we heard comments when we were going through that and taking a look at some original preliminary data that it looked like some of the spans of control were.
What's a span of control, maybe for people that don't know?
Sorry, so how many people how many people report to. Like, it's the span of supervision on that side. So generally, depending on, and it really depends on the type of job that you're doing and the type of work that there is. At the higher level, it's a span of control of 8 is sort of the average, like, you know, at a director level or whatever you'd want, 8 direct reports on that side. So the recommendation was to do a risk analysis, go out to all the departments and take a look and go in there, and then identify some like higher risk areas, and then come up with a plan to address those areas on that side. So that was the recommendation.
So I guess a plan to address that, then people get reallocated if someone's got too many people that they're supervising? Is that what?
So could be that, it could work into that. The plan to do it is usually to, once you have identified that and see it as a risk, is to go further and study that a little bit more and see what is it. Sometimes the span of controls, when we do the rough data, actually it looks like they have a really high span of control, but then find out that it's delegated to people in between that, and it's just not captured in PeopleSoft and that. So sometimes it can just be capturing that properly. Other parts, it can be taking a look and then actually having to either hire more people or divvy up the areas on that. So that people have basically it's so people can supervise people, have the time to supervise people properly.
And then recommendation number 11, this one, do you want to explain this one?
So that, so it says, like, in consultation with department directors and the director of HRS, develop a process for departments to report to HRS and CAO on completion of the annual Flex Work program, review the effectiveness of the flexible workplace arrangements. This one, its initial target, it actually was implemented early. The initial target was Q1 2025. It sort of dovetails in with recommendation number 5 when they actually revamped the performance review process. It's actually the new document that they have for a performance review. They simplified it quite a bit, aligned it to job descriptions, and they have the flex workplace piece that goes in there, so you know it's done annually and it's trackable and it's reportable. That's it. So.
Number 12, I guess people weren't reporting their training. Is this what I'm reading it as? And now they are, or?
So this was, we didn't have, like, PeopleSoft was a little bit clunky as far as being able to record all that, all the training and that. They've actually switched over to LMS, like a different learning management system, and that's facilitated better tracking and more. It wasn't like the tracking that was off. I mean, the courses and that were offered through the city were tracked 100%. Like, there was very good tracking there. It's the stuff that people went and did outside of the city that wasn't tracked consistently. LMS does actually allow that. It has the functionality to be able to track that.
Okay. And then I guess there's, you've got 4 more left that you're working on?
Yep. So to correct the administration, they get all the credit on that side. We just bring it to your attention.
Right, yes,
So,
of course.
and they've done a lot of work, like, as you can see, like, they've moved a lot of those recommendations forward.
Well, they needed to be. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I don't have any more questions.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor Bouwadi has moved the matter. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works. I do believe item number 1, Councillor Lukes, we have an amendment related to a map that's required.
Yes, we do. And then I'm just wondering, I think, is Bjorn here still? If he could come
Bjorn's
down
here,
and we
Kevin's
could
here.
just talk a little bit here. It's very important. So the amendment, basically the amendment is to just put a clear map in the document.
Yeah.
So that's what the amendment is. And that map highlights the sort of a refined on-demand zones for counselors. And I think that it's important that we just spend a couple minutes talking about this. So I'm going to make the analogy to, you know, when we're building a building and we go from a class 4 to a class 3 to a class 2, we get more refined, a more refined project. Well, what's happened in transit is as they're getting closer and closer and refining routes and schedules, they've come up with a solution that I think I think it's very good, and they're applying it more than they had, I guess, maybe originally planned, and that's the on-demand service. So many counselors who did not have an on-demand service will, and maybe, Mr. Sturgeon, you just want to highlight the new changes?
Sure. So today we have 4 on-request zones. In the service implementation plan that was initially approved last June, there were going to be 8 beginning this coming June. Now we're proposing 12. And so it does cover a fair portion of generally the outer parts of the city. Will cover many wards or portions of many wards if approved. And we believe, just offers a little more flexibility in capturing the way people actually move around in evenings and weekends, and lets us maintain the primary transit network within the target service levels in those same time periods. And we think it'll just help people get around a little bit easier.
So primarily evenings and weekends, there'll be changes that people will use this on demand.
Right. So similar to today, today we have 4 zones. Some operate in the middle of the day, none operate at rush hours, some operate in the evenings, and some on weekends. And so in a similar way, each of the 12 areas would have slightly different hours of service depending on the nature of the area and the nature of the service demand. But most of them would run evenings and weekends. And that's when there's a lower demand and a different nature of travel.
And how long was the pilot for the first 4? Maybe just share that.
So there's actually been a version of this in place for a long time. It was, until about 4 years ago or 3 years ago, it was telephone-based, so dial-a-ride transit. Then we changed that to an app-based booking system, and that really made it simpler for customers, but also for the operators. So now, rather than the operator pulling over to answer the phone, they would receive directions from the app, just like you would driving a car with a GPS. It tells the driver where to turn, and it adjusts in real time based on the trips that are coming in through the app. So initially we did that with one vendor for about a year, or a little over a year, I believe. It worked out well, and that was the pilot phase. We sort of proved the concept of the app-based booking and fine-tuned some of the logistics for the drivers and for the customers who don't have access to an app. They book by calling 311 or by using their desktop computer. And so with the system, or with the pilot showing good results, we went to an open bid process. A different vendor won that bid process, and so we switched to that vendor last summer. That's also been going well. There was a small amount of changes on our end to adjust to the way the new system works compared to the old one, but it's been working out. We've had good feedback. We had, the last time I checked, which now is a few weeks ago, we had about 85% support among the people who chose to respond to the on-app survey. We're seeing what the capacity of the system is, and we're just constantly making minor adjustments in the background that customers don't see, but it seems to be working quite well.
Okay, so this is exciting. This is all part of our
Absolutely.
transit shift to higher frequency transit. And then now we've got the map that depicts all these routes, these new zones. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I know there's not 400,000 of Winnipeggers watching, but if there were, I would tell them, go to this report. For example, go to Appendix B, individual routes, see where your route is going to be, your community route, your connector route, your frequency route, whatever the case would be. It's all laid out there in advance of the changeover that's coming. So, okay. All right, thank you
Thank
again
you.
for your ongoing work, gentlemen. All those in favor, any other questions on this? Okay, all,
You can if you want. Just can
Yeah,
you
go ahead,
just
Councilor Santos.
quickly talk about the app, right? There's a new app I believe we're allowed to do on a trial basis so that people who can get themselves familiar with the new transit routes. When is that coming online, the new app?
Yeah, so just because we do have a number of apps, I'll just clarify it. So there's three main apps that people are going to be dealing with. So our in-house Winnipeg Transit app for planning trips is available now, and as of the end of April, will include the future network. The second app is for on-request booking that I mentioned before. That's through a vendor called Spare Labs. The app itself is called the Winnipeg Transit Plus on-request app. That's already available, and it serves trips in those 4 on-request zones, as well as Winnipeg Transit Plus trips throughout the city for Winnipeg Transit Plus customers. The third app, and I think the one that you're referring to, this committee approved a contract that was recently signed. So following this committee's approval, administration recently signed that contract. And so within the next 6 weeks or so, that partnership, and that's called the Transit app. And so it's a bit confusing because everything we do has the name Transit in it, and now it's just simply the Transit app. We call it the Green Transit app to differentiate it. So that has 3 functions that so people can already use that. In fact, 33,000 Winnipeggers use that every day already, which is a pretty significant proportion of our ridership, and they're using the free version. When we have our partnership in place, which is underway now, there will be 3 functions that are added. One is called Network Previewer Mode. And so once the public schedules are available at the end of April, or shortly after that, people will be able to use that app, push the Previewer Mode button, and it'll, in a way, transport them to the future. And so they'll start using that app in the way that they would be using it after June 29th to illustrate where their trips, how they get around. So Network Previewer Mode. The second functionality is that it integrates trip planning with the on-request system, which today are 2 separate systems. And if you try to book a trip or try to look at options for a trip to go to a certain place, and on-request is part of that journey, the customer won't today see that result. They would have to already know that they need to go to the on-request app and book it. So this will integrate that, give customers that information that on-request is part of their trip. And if they're using it after that's in place, after the network's in place, they'll be able to click a button that'll transfer them over to the other app where they can book their on-request trip. So it's just a little more seamless.
So kind of following up to that, I'm assuming it's kind of like a trial period, right, to see what the hiccups are? Like,
Right. Yeah, this is a 1-year.
Where are we going to direct residences to say like, well, this doesn't make sense, I'm not understanding? Are they going to call their counselor's office? Do they call 311? And then I guess from there, you'll gather all that feedback and kind of fix what you need to fix of some of the hiccups. Is that correct to assume?
Yeah, we're directing people to contact 311.
Okay.
311 is helping us manage all of the incoming concerns, compliments, complaints, to make sure that it's all tracked properly and that we have statistics that we can look back on and make those adjustments.
Okay.
We're able to make small adjustments within a few months, but the first significant adjustments will be part of the annual service planning process that comes after we collect about 15 months of data and report back to council.
That's afterwards when the plan has been implemented.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, good, excellent.
Councillor Bawadi, then Councillor Lukes, then I'm going to talk a little bit. I mentioned it to that last time about just using the app that I used, which was fantastic. Councillor Bawadi.
Thank you. I mean, certainly we're going to direct Winnipeggers to use our apps, the Green Transit app. Quite often, though, if you're coming into a city, if you're a tourist, and I do this, you pull up Google Maps or Apple Maps. How quick do you expect to have those apps to reflect the new network?
So the public release of schedules will be at the very end of April. And what we do is place the data on our website in a consistent location. And all of those third-party providers like Google Maps and smaller apps and any other provider that we don't have a formal relationship with will pull the data from that location. So in a sense, it's from the perspective of those third-party providers, it's the same as when we do our seasonal schedule changes. We put a new set of data into the same place. Just in this case, the seasonal schedule changes virtually every route.
Sure, thank you.
Councilor Lukes, was it you?
Well, I'm looking at the on-request map, and it's impossible to read. It's all gray, a darker gray. Like, what happened to the yellow one?
We're not sure what happened with the color rendering on that initial version, but the revised version that was
Where
provided
is the revised
works.
version? Oh,
Yeah.
so it's, okay, because it says refer to A, Appendix A.
Your motion is to revised Appendix A, so I've sent you revised
Got it.
Appendix A.
Okay, I thought you'd built it in. Sorry. Okay, let's hope I can read it. Okay.
The one from the clerk is right. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good, perfect. Okay.
Any
no more
further questions at all?
Nope, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just, again, commend our staff for pointing us to the green, called the Green Transit app. I've used it, probably, no doubt you gentlemen have in other cities as well, even here. Very effective, very accurate, very intuitive, and you can engage with it, right? So you can, it's almost, not quite like AI, but you can feed it information and it'll adjust in real time. So it's really, really great. Okay, good. Thank you very much to both of you. Councillor Lukeson, you're moving this motion as
Motion?
amended? Okay, all in
As
favor, aye?
amended. Okay. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you both.
And let's see.
2.
here. Item number 2. A lot has been said. I don't know if anyone wants to say anything about this, otherwise I'll just move it. But item number 2, I did have a little amendment here. It doesn't say when we're coming back with this, let me just get it up here, hold on here.
The report back with the
With the independent value for money assessment for valuing business case and alternative project delivery methods. I'm hoping we could add a date in there by December 2025, if we could, if people are amenable to that. Okay.
Thank you. I certainly would support that. I appreciate
That's the amendment.
Councillor
Okay.
Sharma kind of flagging that for us. Thank you. Okay, move then, the report come back by the end of 2025.
Yep. Okay.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
And then I'll move item number 3 and 4.
I do have to note Brad Nierik's background right now. He's sitting with he's joined us. His background screen is, I think that must be the Arlington Bridge.
That's the Arlington Bridge.
It's a picture of the Arlington Bridge and behind him, so it's a very effective background screen.
Yeah, maybe he's on location.
It's cold out right now, I can tell you.
You're not supposed to be
Brave
on that
without a
bridge.
jacket,
You shut
yeah.
that down there, Brad Neary. Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Item 3, Pembina Highway Overpass at Abenuzzi Meekin and Rehabilitation Related Works Project, Delegation of Authority Award for over expenditure.
Okay, I'll move that report.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Item 4 is the Goods Movement Advisory Committee Annual Report.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that we've had good feedback from the Goods Movement Advisory Committee. I will note that it was the Manitoba Trekking Association that had come forward, and we had good discussion about actually setting up a committee to look at goods movement. So it's been, I think, very productive. I've attended a meeting, and they seem to, really have, so again, it's conversation and communication. So I'll move the report, Mr. Mayor.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the Standing Policy Committee on Community Services dated March 5th, 2025. There are 2 items. Councillor Santos.
Yep. I'll move, I wouldn't mind pulling number 2 and just talk about that one a little bit, but I'll move item number 1, Winnipeg Fire Paramedic Employee Clinical Skills Experience.
All those in favor of item 1? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 2, Councillor Santos, go ahead.
Item number 2, so this is a little bit, just a bit of a back history. This is part of the 2 billion tree program. And the city of Winnipeg was able to garner some funds from the federal government to plant approximately 70,000 trees between 2022 to 2026. So the program does end in about approximately 2 years from now, end of 2026. I did reach out to Dave Domke. To date, we have planted 50,000 trees out of the 70,000. So we're not quite there, but we're getting there. And we are going to approve 16 nonprofit organizations to help us plant some more trees on publicly owned land. And I think we've got about 340 trees we're going to be planting. So this motion or this report is to approve those grants to these 16 organizations. And then later on this year, we'll be able to open it up again for other organizations to come forward for 2026.
Councillors, appreciate you, thank you for standing this down, because you're right, it's good to highlight. And when you look at this report, when you look at the item number, the grants and the amounts of, in each corresponding group, but you look at this, the residents association, residents group, children's center. So we do really want to commend the residents of our city, various groups who are engaged, planting trees. The only way this is possible for us to meet, as you articulated, our goals when it comes to planting more trees in the city, is to have the participation of everyday Winnipeggers, and this is fantastic. I commend these groups for participating. We all commend them and thank them very much for their work. So, with that, call the question on this item. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the report of the Standing Policy Committee on Property and Development, dated March 6, 2025. Councillor Duncan.
Yes, I will move item number 1.
Okay, item number 1. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Item number 2.
Item number 2, obviously a thoroughly discussed item within the public domain, just in regards to the LeMay Forest Committee. Was trying to find creative solutions to hopefully give specific direction to the public service to attempt to assemble these privately held lands. And just for those that aren't clear on exactly what assembling land looks like, it's putting together land, it's not taking land, it's looking at options. In this case, 4 options being on the table potentially: that to purchase, that to exchange, that to donate, or looking at other creative options to potentially expropriate, some of which are the department is supportive of, some of which are not. But at the end of the day, the department did not have direction from council on this, and they, until this motion came forward, they do not have direction. So it was kind of a lot of stakeholders out in the community up in arms about protecting not only the forest, but now the other factors that are at play there, in particular the unmarked graves. We as a committee, and I as the chair of that committee, thought that this was a good step in the right direction. However, there is a ruling that's coming from the province and the municipal board on council's previous decision to reject an application. I think it would be prudent at this point in time to look to Madam Clerk, if you can help me with this, a layover of the matter, just to allow for the municipal board to provide its direction, and then council could consider at that point in time.
Sorry, just to confirm, you want to lay it over to the next meeting of EP?
I might direct just the question so I can be clear. I apologize, Mr. CAO. Do we have a date when we're expecting that ruling from municipal board? Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, yeah, that's my understanding. The municipal board hearing is anticipated by by the end of the month or in the coming weeks.
I think if we did to the next executive policy committee meeting, that should give us, I think, enough time to hopefully have a ruling from the municipal board.
Okay, yeah.
Just for clarification, it is anticipated sometime in the next month. It'll be very close. It'll be very close, a hearing, a layover.
Well, my intent would be to hear from the municipal board, so if we need, if it requires further layover, but yes, Mr. Mayor, if you'll allow this to be laid over to the next EPC meeting, that would be.
I certainly support that. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Any other questions? Councillor Lukes?
And then the municipal board will make a decision, and their decision, I mean, it could be a wide range of decisions, if I'm not mistaken, right? They could accept, reject, or I'm thinking back to one other decision, they could accept with modifications, I believe.
Madam Clerk?
Oh, yeah, right, the expert
Sorry,
here.
yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Just wasn't sure if the CAO was as familiar. So the council can't pass, council is bound by the municipal board's recommendation. In this case, council rejected the initial application, so depending on what the recommendation from the municipal board comes back as, we're limited.
Right, so we have to adhere to their decision, but their decision could be a range, right? Their decision could be accept, reject, or accept, but, you know, maybe these conditions,
They
right?
could, yes.
And then at that point, that would be a determining factor in, well, how things are going to proceed, basically. If there is development or no development, or, okay. So I think laying it over is till we hear from the municipal board is a good decision. I'd support that.
Okay, all those in favor of layover? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Wondering if, I guess, 6 does not have a recommendation, right? 6 can't
Yeah,
put a
I
recommendation?
can move items 3, 4, and 5 as recommended.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 6. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, this was a tie vote and came before this committee with no recommendation. I would suggest that we revert back to community committee recommendation.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 7 to, can we go 7 to 11?
Yes, we can. Extensions of time 7 through 10.
Okay, we'll do 7 through 10. All those in
Yes.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 11.
Item number 11
Item number 11.
as recommended by the SBC. I'll move.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 12.
Okay.
I believe we have an amendment.
Yeah, I was hoping we could make a little amendment to item number 12. This is a really good project that's been on the books and has been morphed, I guess, quite a bit since 2019. And we want to get this built. It's a beautiful building that's in the works. And if we could, in recommendation 1B, remove the words, the City Center Community Committee, and that the project go to the Director of Planning, Property, and Development for approval.
Councillor, that's the amendment. Councillor Duncan, you want to speak to the amendment?
Yes. We had a healthy discussion about this at SPC. I was comfortable with where SPC landed on this, ultimately seeing the development happen, and I am comfortable with the SPC recommendation, so I won't be supporting the amendment as put forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so then anyone else, then all those in favor of the item as amended? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Councillor Duncan opposed? Okay. All right.
And I believe we can do omnibus, well, we only have 2 left. 13, 14 as recommended by SPC.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Okay. Report now on the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development dated March 7th, 2025. Councillor Brawadi.
Thank you, Your Worship. The first report, I just wanted to say welcome and thank you to the new Executive Director at Center Venture, Rochelle Squires. She was at SBC back on March 7th and provided an update. Even though she's only 2 months in, it seems like she's really got her head around what's going on in the downtown. There's a lot of good projects that are proceeding. Certainly our challenges in our downtown, we know, but also some very good things. So look forward to working with her, and it's my pleasure to move the 2024 annual report.
All those in favor, item number 1, aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. Item number 2 is the Housing Stats Data Model Analysis.
I'll just move this.
All those in favor, aye. Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Standing Policy Committee on Water, Waste, and Environment, dated March 10th, 2025. Councillor Edie.
Yes. Report number 1 on the cost estimate update. Just a little bit of missed business in terms of setting the capital program at the $10.894 million, so that we only set the 2025 sewer rate, leaving till this upcoming budget cycle to deal with the 26 and 27 sewer rates. So it's just the revised appendices that indicates the 10.894 million we need to start the project, start procurement for Project 3, nutrient removal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Edie, for your this amendment and your work on this matter. So the item's moved as amended, but I think there may be some questions for our director, Mr. Tim Shanks, on this item. Is it on this item, Councillor Duncan, or
Future items. Under
future
this,
items? Okay.
SPC, yep.
Okay, so this item, let's. I'll call the question then on item 1 as amended. All those in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, carried. Thank you. Item number 2 is the 2025 to 2027 revised sewer volume rates.
Related to calculations for the new for Project 3, nutrient removal.
Yes.
Mayor, thank you very much. We were quite aghast to see what it would look like if we had to pay the whole bill through cash, which I think is good for everybody to understand the huge financial implications this could have on people's affordability and being able to live day to day. The report is, it's raising $10.894 million in 2025 for Project 3. And I would note, we did our department did it's quite a detailed report, and a lot of work went into it, and we had them revise it so that we could understand how, what effects they could have. But I just want to note that the estimate per quarter was based on 50 cubic meters for consumption for a family of 4. I would indicate, Mayor, that there is a small increase here in sewer rates, but seniors, even in my own home without young kids anymore, water consumption is down quite a bit. So this is just based on a family of 4. So if you're just a senior by yourself living in a home, you probably already adjusted your water consumption to reflect your financial capability. So the annual amount will be lesser for people who use less water and more for the others. So.
Thank you very much. We have Mr. Shanks here coming forward. I do, just before we turn it over to other questions, I do want to note and just, I guess, express appreciation to Mr. Shanks and Lucy from his department and everyone who had a hand in putting this report together, because it does provide some clarity. One of the reasons that we're just looking to approve the 2025 rate as opposed to what was proposed 25, 26, 27 is that approving the 2025 rate gives the department basically the cash to move ahead with the next very necessary steps related to Project 3, but it also allows us as council, my office, our department, our CAO, our director, to continue working with the provincial and federal governments about a different funding mechanism, and to work with the Canada Infrastructure Bank bank to find a way to, in essence, amortize the $1.5 billion that is the cost of the Project 3 over multiple years, and in fact, over generations. Given that the current plant that we are using was built about 95 years ago or so, we've been using it for over 90 years, this new plant will serve the citizens of Winnipeg with some, no doubt, with some adjustments and maybe some a little more development in the future, but it will serve the citizens of Winnipeg probably for the next century or so. So it makes sense that this be paid for over multiple years. One of the aspects of this report I think I appreciate the most is it lays out clearly the impact of having all three levels of government fund this, as opposed to just the city of Winnipeg ratepayers. And that chart, that is a very telling chart, is on page 15, where it shows in 2025, really there's whether we were to approve 25, 26, 27 rates or just 25, there's really no different to the approval of the rate required in 2025. But in 26 and 27, a significant difference. The cost to ratepayers drops significantly if and when we can get provincial and federal partners to help cost share this project. And that is the work that we are continuing to do and will keep doing as a priority. And that, as I said, is spelled out very, very clearly here on page 15 in the annual bill impact compared to 2024 if we indeed get scenario 3, which is 2/3 government funding from other levels of government. So just point that out. Are there questions for Mr. Shanks at this point on this item? Maybe on the next item? Okay, on the next item, we'll wait for it. Okay, so then we have this item before us.
Yeah, just
as moved by Councillor.
Just one last
Eadie?
point. I mean, you talked about it, but Project 3 needs to move forward, and this council's the one that has to do it. And it was good working with the mayor trying to move the project forward without causing affordability problems for Winnipeggers.
Thank you. I'll call the question on item 2. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Item 3, solid waste utility financial plan and rate model, 2025 to 2027.
Yes.
Councillor Eadie, you want to move this, and then there are some questions.
Yeah, I'll introduce it, move it. I just wanted to reflect this. This creates a full utility with solid waste and with a waste management fee. It does allow more flexibility in ongoing operations and running essentially garbage service, which is an essential city service that nobody, that we can't go without to keep our city clean. And if you ever seen in the distant past, they used to dump garbage right into the Red River way, way back when. It's unbelievable. Anyway, so yeah, it's a new fee. The standing committee, there were some amendments made to solid waste utilities plan, water and waste, and trying to deal with affordability. And I'll just mention looking at the interim fees, because no waste management fees were charged at all in 2024 to the tune of $28.2 million, while there was some losses related to recycling operation and stuff there too. But really looked for a way to lower that amount over time. But if we spread the $28.2 million collected back over 10 years, essentially there would be a savings of about $17, but there would be a big increase in interest costs over the 10 years, would be like $2 million extra dollars, and that would be extra money that having to pay back. So there was no other option to lower it that we looked for. The original thought was that retained earnings would be able to handle it, but all of the surpluses that ended up in there are directed at other highly needed projects within the whole department. And I think that's all I'd say right now. Dividends, we're looking in the future, but in our 4-year budget, whatever projections were for the dividend, that money was already being directed to other places to keep our budget balanced and moving forward. So at that, I'll leave it. Questions? We did some amendments to try to offset affordability with the management fee, and anyway, I'll let it stand.
Councillor Duncan.
Hi. Thank you very much. Appreciate those comments, Councillor Eady. I was looking potentially if Director Shanks could give a brief overview for those that are wondering exactly what it is that is making it more expensive. Specifically, if we could take us from the, I believe it's $90 currently, up to the proposed increase.
Yes, no, that's correct. It's the current, might sound a little confusing, but we have a waste diversion fee that we currently charge that shows up on folks on your utility bill. So you'll see a line for waste diversion fee. That went up, I believe, to equivalent to $93 a year in the last budget. So right now you're seeing $93 for waste diversion fee. This report before you eliminates that waste diversion fee. We'll reduce it to zero, but then of course replace it with a waste management fee. The logic there is the diversion fee historically was established for funding for things like the recycling collection, for depot management and other waste diversion activities like that. So it's not in any way related to the rest of the solid waste operations, which we are trying to now capture in a financially sustainable, transparent single fee going forward. So the waste management fee is there to encompass all the solid waste activity, which the biggest part, to your point of your question, the biggest change is the addition of, this direct billing for curbside garbage collection. So historically, the curbside garbage collection has been done and then recovered through a transfer from tax supported. That was changed in the 2024 budget. So this model establishes a single fee to collect that amount to pay for garbage collection, but also the recycling collection, the forward depots, that sort of thing. So the $93 to $250 or so there a year, it's a big difference. The biggest part of that is the collection contract recovery, but there's also some right sizing of some of the services that we have already been providing that weren't really being provided at a proper cost recovery. That's referred to in this report. It kind of have a new catch-all for that. We call them the universal services. So there's a page on page, I think it's page 8 here, below the breakdown table where it talks about, universal services. That will be where we fund the 4 depot operations going forward. The community recycling depots, that funding for that. Things like dead animal collection, the bulky waste sweeps we do for arson prevention, and the neighborhood cleanup fees. Some landfill closure and post-closure costs that aren't covered under tipping fees. And this is also where we're going to appropriately fund the services we provide to arenas and registered charities, that sort of thing. So it's that portion of it. In the report, we do have several tables, some pie charts where we try to break down how much of where your annual fee goes. And so the difference here is under the universal services component, like I said, that's being right-sized. It's a little bit more than it would have been previously. And then there's the garbage collection, which is the bulk of this fee. There's also, of course, the interim financing deficit recovery cost that was just spoken to. So that's the big difference, is that primarily it's the garbage collection component that we're trying to recover in a sustainable manner.
Councillor Duncan, then Councillor Lukes.
Okay, so the pushback that we get, I shouldn't say that, the pushback that I get as an area councillor is $93 is turning into $254. We must have been running a deficit then because this is not new services. So A, were we running a deficit? And B, how was that deficit being funded if there was one?
Yes, last year, and in the forecasted budget for 2025, there was about a $28 million deficit for the utility operations as a whole for that single year. As I mentioned before, in the previous years, like say in 2023 or 2022 or earlier, the deficit would have been only related to there was some years there was a deficit in some of the recycling operations because, like I said, we weren't really right-sized for proper recovery. We don't always get all the percentage funding from our grants, this sort of thing. It would have been very much smaller, nowhere in the near neighborhood of the $28 million we have now. That $28 million is 99% the collection cost that historically would have been recovered from property taxes. It's a large amount. The short answer is yes, the solid waste utility was operating at a deficit for 2024 and will be until this fee is in place.
So how did we fund the $254 per household in the past when we were only charging $93? That's what everyone's asking. It just doesn't make sense.
Yes, the $90 funded almost all of the waste diversion fee funded almost all of those waste diversion activities, with a very small portion that wasn't funded properly. But the huge, $120 a year of that $160 a year difference is the garbage collection cost that would have come off of people's property taxes through a transfer from general revenue. So before it wasn't just conceptually in prior years you weren't just paying the $93 waste diversion fee. You were paying $93 waste diversion fee plus $120 off your property taxes. Ish.
Yeah. So that brings me to, okay, we got to pay back the amount that used to be subsidized through individual residential property tax. So we're going to pay that back over 3 years?
Over 3 years, yes.
Okay.
But and we're only paying back the year and the last 3 months, I guess, the year and 3 months where we don't have the fee yet.
Okay, so once we pay that back over the next 3 years, will hypothetically, or I don't know if you folks have calculated out that far yet, but will this $254 fee go down?
The debt recovery portion of that fee that's listed on the table there, we do show the 3-year forecast here. The amount for interim financing and project delivery, or interim financing and deficit recovery does drop from, like, the quarterly portion in 2025 will be $6.25. Next year it drops to $5. 2027 drops to $2.50 a quarter. In 2028 it's zero. It's gone. So that part, yes, is reducing over those 3 years because we're eliminating that liability. Beyond that, there are other things in the works that could change this, both up or down. The recycling, there's a potential for the provincial decision to create a producer-run recycling structure, where the city would have the option of actually not doing any of the recycling, curbside collection or processing, and that a different entity would take that over. So that fee would come off the component for recycling collection here, which is $12 a quarter, roughly, or $11 a quarter. So that's the $50 a year, whatever.
Yeah,
we'll put down.
45,
Also, the organics program, as we get, part of this fee does include the fundraising we're building to purchase the green carts, but obviously at a future state, next year or two, we should be looking at a long-term organics program that will have a cost structure depending on what we go with, how what proponent is successful in that. At the very least, once we do curbside organics collection, our intent, and it's also as part of council direction, is to look at reducing the frequency of curbside garbage collection. So the garbage collection cost should reduce. Of course, there will be a new increase in organics curbside collection. Could that be a wash? I'm not sure. We'll know in a few years, but it definitely will have an impact on this. This could go down a little bit or stay the same.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yeah,
may?
one more, and then we'll turn to Councilor Lukes. Yeah.
Okay, I will pick one then. Monthly billing. I know I've asked this a bunch of times, and I'm sure it's getting old, but I'm going to continue to ask it until we can do it. Monthly billing, not only for solid waste, but also for water. How do we get there, and how quickly can we get there so that folks are not essentially paying more than they can afford when that quarter comes?
I don't have a good schedule I can commit to on hand right now as to when we can get there, but I can commit to that's our ultimate goal. And I do know that the biggest part, I mean, there are a bunch of different things that have to be in place. We have to have a different billing system. We have to have a few other things in place infrastructure-wise. But the biggest step in that, I believe, would be getting to where we have our new water meters installed that can provide us accurate real-time reading so that we don't have to estimate bills or provide entry into customers' homes to try to get a real billing read. Once we have that AMI system in place, again, that's not the only thing we have to have in place, but that's certainly one of the biggest things. Once we get that in place, we can certainly look to moving towards monthly billing and the convenience that would provide customers and the advantage to doing monthly financing for on the customer's billing. And again, the intent is to have one single utility bill, as we do now, where you have water and sewer and the solid waste charge all on one invoice.
I'll stop. Thank you.
Councilor Lukes.
Okay, so I'm getting very similar questions. Just recap the 28 million, why there wasn't 28 million in 2022, 2023 in previous years? It came out of the property taxes?
Yeah, like we were incurring that cost and paying for it through a recovery from the general revenue fund. So it would have been recovered from the property taxes that everybody pays. So the cost was there, but it was recovered in a way that didn't show up on your utility bill directly.
So then the other question I'm getting is why didn't we ease into this over a couple of years versus this year?
Well, I mean, it's a good question, but I think the reality of the budget, the multi-year budget process in 2024, I mean, it's a very challenging budget process, as you all know. I don't have to speak for that, but the interim financing option that we did to keep, like it's not external borrowing, it's internal borrowing, that allowed us to do this. The marching orders from the 2024 multi-year budget was, public service come back by the end of 2024 with a financial model, which we came back with a request for an extension so that we could talk about this with all the other rates at the same time. So, yeah, in practical terms, I think it was the best we could do.
Very diplomatic answer from our director.
Yeah,
Really
okay,
accurate.
I hear you, sure.
Yes, thank you, but absolutely accurate. If I may, one question I have is just clarity. Appendix E, which I thought was very helpful as well. I think we are one of the last major Canadian cities, if I'm not mistaken, to move to basically a user fee for these services, as opposed to it being on the tax supported. I do want to note that Councilor Reedy for many years talked about the move to get this off the tax support and more so onto a user fee here. The one question I have is that chart in Appendix E is very helpful. It does show that even with this significant change, the residential customer annual fee at $254 a year as proposed is still lower, and in some cases significantly lower than comparable cities within Canada. Noting that some other cities, though, like Calgary, Toronto, Edmonton, also include the organics collection, sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. I happened to be somewhere this weekend where I was in discussion with a woman that I know, her and her husband, they're from a town in Ontario. Because they have now biweekly organics collection, they now have not weekly, but biweekly garbage collection. And so there's a bit of a saw-off there. But all that to say, just noting that I thought Appendix E was helpful, showing the comparison, Winnipeg's fee compared to other major cities in Canada. So no need to comment on that, but the comparison I thought was helpful. Councillor Lukes.
Here on the monthly billing, okay? I hear you on the monthly billing, what you're saying, getting the new meters in. Then it'll take another couple of years to get some software system set up and whatever to do the monthly billings, or maybe a year. Why can't we take a person's average bill for that address and just bill them every month? And then when we do the one reading, equivalate out the difference, more or less. Why can't we do that?
It's a great question, and the billing system as currently constructed, like there are, essentially there's software changes that need to be made that incur a cost. And what we're looking at, because we're on the verge of creating, installing this new infrastructure for the water meters, we don't necessarily want to spend a lot of money making changes under the hood of the billing system, this year, when we want to make sure we coordinate with what we're doing. Like, to keep in mind, like the AMI project, and I apologize because any chance I get to talk about this, I do talk about this, but the AMI project, we are starting next year to install some of these meters in our first areas, and then over the subsequent 3 years, as we get more of the inventory changed over, we will have more information on what type of billing system we need, what kind of changes we can make, and where we should probably be spending that money and effort to change our system to get to monthly billing. But to give you a more detailed or accurate answer with better timelines, I'd have to consult with the project team to get something more substantial. But.
Okay.
Councillor Duncan, and then we're going to turn to Councillor Eady and call for the question in a moment. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, again, I hear you on the complexities of getting to the monthly billing, but I do think that, not today, obviously allow you to go back and potentially have some sort of direction given on how and when we'd like that. But I mean, to make this more palatable for residents, I think that we need to have a monthly payment plan, sooner rather than waiting for all the infrastructure and the perfect timing to come on. I know there could be some throwaway, but I mean, I'm, doing the simple math, $21 a month sounds a heck of a lot better than 254, and we're not even putting into the equation the water increases.
Yeah, I should clarify. I believe, and I can get confirmation right after the meeting here, but there's two different things: monthly billing versus monthly payment plans. We do offer payment plans. Like you can pay us on a monthly schedule. It's a little bit different than getting an official bill every month. So I should point that out.
Mm-hmm.
So they can sign up like a tip or what?
I believe so.
For what?
Well, they can just make a payment.
Yeah.
Maybe what we'll do is, for the director, maybe we'll ask that when you get after this meeting, can you find out from your staff and then just send an email to EPC, in fact, to all of council, just to relate to this matter, that if monthly payments are available, not a monthly billing, but if monthly payments are available to help spread out, to Councilor Duncan's point, the costs to residents, if that's available, then we'll get that. Or any information related to that would be great, please. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilor.
Okay, so, and just, I want to clarify some things regarding the waste diversion fee. My first question is basically, well, I know the answer. In 2011, it was decided that regular residential properties would pay the waste diversion rate from the beginning. Is that right?
I'd have to defer to your recollection of that, Councillor. I believe I've heard that before, yes, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, anyway, they all paid the waste diversion fee when it was implemented. And the multifamily, when did they start waste diversion, and did they pay?
I'm not sure when they started waste diversion. I do know, to your point, like the other thing in this report, like we are looking to, multifamily properties certainly historically have not paid the waste diversion fee. We do provide recycling services, waste diversion services to some multifamily properties, but it's, we had never recovered the cost from them on that. So part of this report in terms of building a sustainable financial model going forward includes a multifamily fee for properties. The multifamily fee for properties, incidentally, though, was also, without this report, the 2025 budget process got us to do that. So that change was coming regardless of this report, that we were going to start recovering cost from multifamily properties.
Okay. Just
And
for
after this, if I can, I'll call the question after this, if that's okay?
I just want to clarify, well, I should let the, we'll talk about it. But just on the 100% producer pay legislation that I think is being passed, but maybe not yet, what do they call it, declared or whatever. When's the estimated completion of that project moving to the 100% producer paid for recyclables?
I believe it was on hold after the provincial election. I'm not sure what the new timeline is on that, but I can include that in a subsequent email to the committee.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And maybe, Mayor, I'll let the department, in terms of, so we are moving to the full utility, which does give us some advantages under this program, Mr. Mayor. There's been in certain areas of the city, sometimes there's a lot of stolen carts and stuff, and they're going to monitor it, but it's not victim pay under this particular model, and I think that's a good thing. I believe their Water and Waste has some programs to try to assist people who don't have a lot of money. Can you just update us as to when we're coming back with that improvements to that program, as well as adding on the waste management fee as a possibility for assistance?
Yes, I believe you're referring to specifically our partnership with Salvation Army and the Help to Others program that historically we've had for, utility bills, but, water and sewer is more so what it's been kind of presented as. Yeah, I can confirm, yes, we will be including, going forward, including the total utility bill as part of the eligible costs in terms of this new waste diversion fee. The changes, the other changes we have in play there for that program include, making it more accessible, changing some of the eligibility requirements to make it easier for folks to apply, maybe apply more frequently, and the dollar amounts, the limits on that we need to increase. Those, we haven't finalized those changes yet, as our rate, all these reports are still working their way through council, but this spring, and certainly we have a report back to SBC Water and Waste due in June, I believe the June meeting, to speak to the affordability impacts of these rate increases. But we also report annually through the poverty reduction, city's poverty reduction strategy. We do have a part of that report to report on these things. So we are working on that. Obviously, we recognize that these are very substantial changes to household cash burdens, financial burdens. So we do want to make sure that we're help targeting the customers that need the assistance directly.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, item number 3 has been moved then. Thank you very much, Mr. Shanks. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I wonder if we can move 4 and 5 together, Councillor Eady?
Yeah, I will move 4, which is just agreement in place so a development can happen, more housing being built, Mr. Mayor. And 5, of course, is the appointment, replacing a member on the Environment Committee, Climate Change.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you. Moving on now, Councilor Lukes, please, to the report on Governance Committee of Council dated March 11th, 2025. Maybe the first item, please.
Sure. This first item is the reappointment of the Integrity Commissioner, and that being Ms. Sherry Walsh to be reappointed for up to 5 additional 2 terms. That's what the contract allows for. So I think she's been doing a very good job. We refer to her, we contact her, I know, on a regular basis. And I think it's a great value to council. So I will move this report.
Councilor Duncan?
I just had a question for the public service in regards to consideration of any other potential appointees. I don't
Okay, I
know
think our
what came of that.
clerk is coming.
Yeah, for sure. I'll repeat the question for him. I was just asking, was there any other consideration of any other individuals to be appointed to the position of City Integrity Commissioner?
No, as Councillor Lukes pointed out, the current contract that we have, the Integrity Commissioner, allows for up to 5 additional appointments of 2 years. I believe that this would be the 4th appointment, 4th reappointment, and then still leaving the city with the ability to reappoint for another 2 years after this term, if the city decided to proceed that way.
But it's not like locked in. I mean, if we wanted to, we
Correct.
could.
Correct.
It's not, it's 2-year option, 2-year option,
Correct.
2-year option.
Okay. Any other questions at all? Councilor Eady?
Yeah, I just have one. Winnipeg's a small city. When an acting integrity commissioner is needed to avoid conflicts, we pay the basic same rate that we pay our integrity commissioner?
Correct.
We don't pay any more or any less, okay.
No, I believe we certainly had that happen in the last little while, and the rates were the same.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay,
Okay,
I'll move it.
let's move this, the item moved. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Item number 2. Councilor Lukes.
City of Winnipeg Governance Review, Governance Committee recommendations. So I'll move this report myself. I'm going to, take into consideration what we heard today. And I'm going to, I may make changes, I might make recommendations or motions at council, but for today, I'll just move this report, make a motion to move the report. I won't be making any amendments or changes today.
Okay, Councilor Duncan?
I'm inclined to support the motion to move this as is. However, just as a precursor to potentially council here, I don't know that I can support the appointment authority be limited to up to 5 members of council on a couple reasons. First off, as our city evolves, changes, grows, that would put us in a position where we would not be able to potentially have more members of council involved in the process as chairs of committees. I know hearing from Councillor Gilroy, her concerns about potentially that equating to an even stronger strong mayor model. I mean, I've been here for 2 years now. I do think that having 5 councillors, only 5 councillors, have essentially more accountability than others based on being chairs. We could look at that. If we approved only 5 moving forward, that would handcuff us. So I don't know that I can support that. In regards to the speaking time pieces, limiting delegations and public hearing representations at council and committee for 5 minutes, I would be supportive of that. If any pushback were to occur from the public, I think that, we should be looking at limiting speaking time or numbers of questions from councilors. I think that we find ourselves in a time where politics, especially on a municipal level, are becoming less and less attractive to residents. However, they directly impact them more and more, the decisions we make. I would like to see there be more viewership of this. I would like to see more people in the gallery. I would like to see more engagement in general. And unfortunately, when we have, let's call a spade, specific counselors looking at the clock to see if they can stretch out their time more to reach that 10-minute mark, I think it's a disservice. And I think a lot of people, to use old terminology, turn their sets off. They don't care. They don't want to listen to it. And I think it's my age demographic, the vast majority do not engage in this because it's dry, it's redundant, and they can't sit down and quickly get the meat to the meat of what's going on. So to make this simpler and to force people to get to the point, I don't think is a bad thing. I understand we want to defend democracy, but I'm not saying, we put a piece of tape over somebody's mouth after 5 minutes. I say we open it up at 5 minutes right across the board. If we need extensions to get to the point, then as a council, we can decide that. Those are my comments at this point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duncan. Yeah, I too will support this today. I want to thank as I said, Councillor Sharma and all the people that have worked on this so far. There are a couple of items that a couple of you colleagues have articulated already that I would want to take a second look at. One is limiting council and codifying into the charter a limit of 5 standing committees. I think that, for future years, that may be problematic and may unduly handcuff future councils and mayors. Also, I too am very much in favor of looking at and discussing a limit of 5 minutes for every councillor as well on each item. So, quick story to end the day with. Part of the Bloomberg Harvard group that I'm with, I was at our first event together, sitting with a bunch of mayors from other cities across North America. It was my first meeting with them. We're having a bite to eat, and the subject of how much speaking time do members of the public and members of council have. And they were all going around the table, and at council, it was 3 minutes per councillor, 3 minutes per councillor, and mayor, 5 minutes, and they looked at me and I said 10 minutes. And they said, their words were, "Are you crazy?" It was funny to see their responses. So I don't think we're crazy, but I do think I'm a firm believer you can say it in 5 minutes. Whatever you have to say can be said, get to the point in 5 minutes. If an extension is needed, an extension can be given. But I too wonder if sometimes we're doing a disservice to the people we serve, and that's what we're here for, the people we serve, to sometimes, I think, not get to the heart of the matter as soon as we can. Nonetheless, we'll call the question on the item not amended right now. Okay, Councillor Eady, go ahead.
Just because, so we are limiting delegations to 5 minutes. I'm talking, this is in terms of speaking time, but we just passed a couple of reports, the sewer rate, the solid waste, and I spent most of my career here at City Hall, questioning and maybe not always on the same side as the mayor or whatever. But the point being that I want to make is you can actually say all you need to say about a 1 point whatever billion dollar budget in 5 minutes?
Extensions. You can get extensions.
Well, then you're interrupting my speaking thought process, and I build it in my head in point form. And anyway, I think the problem is you need different people have different speaking style. Anyway, I see it as limiting a democratic voice if you're limiting a city councilor who represents, I represent 52,000 something people right now. So, anyway.
Okay. All right, thank you. We're going to call Councilor Duncan, then we're going to call a question.
You know what, I'll make my comment too, Councillor Edie, off,
right.
outside of this meeting.
Call the question on this item then. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Madam Speaker, I think that's the last. Madam Speaker, would you move adjournment? You can't. I'm just kidding. Okay, Councilor Santos, move adjournment, please.
So moved.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We're adjourned.